So Ukrainian backers have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on military equipment, on aid. There have been two attempted counteroffensives in the last couple of years. One that was relatively successful, one that has been described as an unadulterated failure. And people are now being made more aware than ever, certainly according to the push being made by the White House, that it is unrealistic, for example, for them to ever get the territories that are occupied by Russia back. And Russia occupies around 20% of Ukraine. So with that in mind, there is a sense of a realism that, though difficult to swallow, by many is seen as potentially at least hope for the beginnings of a peace plan, at least. The people that we spoke to this morning that were doubling down on sentiments that we've heard for the last 3 years, indeed the last 10 years since the 2014 annexation of Crimea. And they were basically saying that they wanted to continue fighting, and it was up to their Western backers to give the necessary support. And they were confident that at least the Europeans could step up in the place of what is potentially perceived as being a reduction in US support here. There was no anger expressed towards the Americans, but yeah, there are real great concerns amongst everybody we spoke to that security really needs to be stepped up, chiefly by the Europeans, to prevent Putin, the Russians, doing this again or pushing for further gains. And of course, all the time, the fighting continues. And according to the Ukrainians, that fighting, or certainly attacks by the Russians, have increased quite dramatically in the last couple of days.
Right, yes, so all things seem to be coming to a head. Charles, thanks for the time being. Charles Stratford there in Kyiv. Let's cross to Moscow. What's the situation there? Yulia Shapovalova will tell us. And Yulia, it's a confirmation from the Kremlin that the Foreign Minister Lavrov will be meeting the Secretary of State.
Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I am doing a live stream on YouTube. I'm not going to be doing a live stream on Rumble today. Markets are closed because of President's Day, but I'll be doing a live stream tomorrow morning on both channels. But this live stream will be only on my website, YouTube, and a simulcast on X Spaces. I'll be setting up X Spaces so you can do a call in, ask questions, give me your take on the news. There's breaking news because of Trump making negotiations for peace between Ukraine and Russia. The European Union and some key countries within the European Union are in an emergency mode. So this is breaking news here. So they're concerned that Ukraine's not part of the negotiations early on. Trump said that he wasn't going to have Zelensky and Putin in the same room on the first round, and because he wanted to talk to Putin first. He did talk to both of them on the phone last week. Now, the Europeans are saying, well, wait a minute here. We're concerned that Ukraine's not part of the early negotiations. This is just Cold War BS all over again with the Euroliners and the deep state and the national security state. The national security state is prodding from the United States, is prodding basically the Europeans to keep on whining for Zelensky instead of really ramping this thing down. And Zelensky's panicking because he sees that he's losing leverage. So what has happened is some countries are being asked to pledge soldiers and weapons into Ukraine. The UK said that they would deploy troops, while Poland is saying they do not want to. So they're within the European Union, there's a fight of there's discussion, serious discussion. Should they or should they not continue supporting Ukraine with military equipment or with troops? All right, so they're having this big meeting because they're realizing Trump doesn't care what the Eurowiners think. So what's starting to emerge here is pretty big. So that's the breaking stuff. We'll cover some of the other news. I guess there's a flood. There's I guess Kentucky has some flooding deaths that they're doing a news conference on. I'm not sure what's going on with that. So we're going to cover the breaking news and some of the op-ed stuff on the channels, the different media channels. Thank you for joining. All right, I'm going to be setting up X spaces on my larger X channel, so you can do that call in. Please help support my work. Make sure you subscribe to all 4 channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. So please subscribe to all those 7 channels. That's really important because I do get strikes on YouTube and I want you to get notifications. You can also join my WhatsApp feed to get notifications. Follow me on X. Again, I have 2 X channels. I also have GETTR. So please follow me there. You can listen to my podcast on Podomatic, Apple Podcast, and on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And you can watch live streams on my website of the videos. Usually I do 2 types of videos, the larger screen like what you're seeing right now, and then the dashboard with the market telemetry. But today we're not doing that because markets are closed. Now, what I'd like to ask is for you to please share the links, ask your social media to follow me. As you know, every time I do a live stream, YouTube bleeds me of subscribers. Every time I post on YouTube, they bleed me of subscribers, especially on the big channel. I need your help to help repopulate the channel. Now, you can just, listen and not participate. And just eventually I just go away and I don't talk anymore. It's that simple. You support or I go. It's very simple. So help support by populating the channel, asking your social media to follow me. Make sure you're subscribed to all the channels. A lot of people have been unsubscribed or you don't get the notifications. Make sure you get the notification. Turn on that bell. And it's important to subscribe to all of them. And that's why we get around the censorship. All right. And then, help support my work by donating. You can donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com, through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee, or be a paid member to my Patreon channel. All the links are in the description. It's easy to donate and it's easy to help support my work by being a paid member on Patreon. It's through the donations that have allowed me to make thousands of videos for free for you guys. Thousands. And to go over geopolitics, current affairs, what's going on in domestic policy, health and wellness, scientific discoveries, my take on certain breaking events, how to navigate through it, finance and economics. I give you a lot of information. So, and that's all for free. All of it. Not behind a paywall, not behind, Substack or anything like that. All of it is for free. So why don't you help support? And if you don't believe me, just watch. Every time that I do a live feed on my big channel, the subscriber count drops. But if I stop publishing, it stabilizes. YouTube is bleeding me. I'm not the only one this is happening to. So I'm not special, but they are trying to reduce the reach of certain people. Now, I've saved literally thousands of lives by stepping up into the breach and doing what I did in 2020. It's time for you to help support my work. Now, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver soaps that I have. You can get the charcoal tea tree. I also have it in lemongrass, lavender, and peppermint. Very high quality structural nano silver soaps. Get a couple bars for your household, help support my work, and help support your health. Extremely high quality soaps. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Elderberry and zinc. Very high quality lozenges. You get it in a 21 count. And then I also have it in Manuka honey in a 21 count. I also have drops in a 100 count. The drops are smaller than the lozenges. You can get the drops in blueberry, honey and lemon, and cherry. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get a few bags of the lozenges and the drops. Be prepared. Have them at work. Have them at home. Have them in your backpack, in your bag, whatever. Right when you have that irritation in your throat during the cold season or during the allergy season, take it right away to mitigate the irritation. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lozenges and the drops. Make sure you use discount 5, all caps, number 5, you get $5 off. Now, it's really important to help support your health by taking Boomer Boost. Now, Boomer Boost is a great supplement. It's a powder. You get a big scooper. You take 1 scoop a day, either for breakfast or for lunch. This replaces your breakfast and your lunch, and you're going to be able to lose weight, and you're going to save money because this costs less than a month of your lunches or a month of your breakfasts. So this take this big scooper, you mix it with either filtered water. Some people mix it with milk or put it in a smoothie. Some people put it in soft foods. I put it in soft foods. You can put it in like hummus or yogurt. That's a great way to take it. I take it in the afternoon for my lunch, but this is a great way to get in shape, lose weight. Now, this is the 4th pillar of my core for my protocol. This boosts up your energy levels and boosts up your metabolism. That's really important for proper health. It has 68 nutrients. It has a very comprehensive nutrient profile. Go to my store and take a look at that label that I have there. This will help with different systems. It'll help with your cardiovascular system. It will help with brain function. It will help with your muscles. And it will also help with boosting up your energy levels and your metabolism. Really important. After taking this for 3 days, you will notice a difference. Literally, 72 hours, and you'll notice a difference. And you're going to have more energy. You're going to sleep better. And because you have more energy, you're going to be more active. And when you're more active, then you just have a better quality of life. But not only that, you're moving around, and then you'll have the energy to work out, and there's the benefits compound. So please go to my store, take the Boomer Boost. Now, the best way to take this is to take it also with, you don't have to, but you get more benefit if you take it with the barley. Now, with the barley, this is high density barley. You can get it in Gladiator barley or in heirloom barley. Now, what's the difference? The Gladiator barley you get all the benefits of the heirloom barley, but you get strength benefits, especially when you do resistance training. Now, both of them, it'll help with the detoxification, bringing down inflammation, and soaking up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. The barley is high density, very high quality barley. You cannot buy this at, let's say, Whole Foods. You know, the regular barley, even if it's organic, that's not as nutrient dense as this. So my recommendation is to take a half a scoop per day. But if you're an active person, take a full scoop. Now, some people that even aren't active and just want more protein in their diet, you can take a full scoop. But I recommend a half a scoop. All right. Now, if you're taking the heirloom barley, you can take this only, or you can add it with the Boomer Boost. It's better if you add it with the Boomer Boost. But again, it'll detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. High density protein. Okay. half a scoop to a full scoop, depending on how much protein you want to take. Now, if you're working out, taking Gladiator barley, you get all the benefits of the heirloom barley, but you get the strength benefits too. This couples very well. This stacks really well with Myotrol. Why? Because this is the nutrients to build your muscle and to reduce the inflammation so you recover quicker. The Myotrol helps for the gene expression to build the muscle. So this is the nutrient. Myotrol is the gene expression supplementation to help to create the muscle. And what will happen is your energy levels will go up and you're going to be able to build muscle quicker. It's great for athletes, and it's great for people that are older that want to build muscle, because when you get 40 plus years of age, you start to atrophy. You start to lose muscle. You start to, you start to lose energy and lose muscle, and there's an atrophying that takes place over time. And if people don't go into the gym and take the right supplementation, you're subpar in your musculature. So this is really important to take. All right. It's for athletes, young and old, but also for people that are not athletes that want to build muscle because they're older and they've atrophied. All right. So now the best result is when you take them together. Now, if you want to control your A1C levels, if you want to control diabetes or prevent diabetes, a lot of people are borderline diabetic. You want to control your A1C levels, take Boomer Boost and Gladiator barley, or the Boomer Boost and the heirloom barley. But you get the most benefits for controlling the A1C levels when you do the Gladiator barley with the Boomer Boost and you do resistance training. Your A1C levels will be controlled and you can reverse diabetes, all right, over time, right? But it's about proper diet, exercise. Now, again, you take these together, half a scoop to a full scoop, depending on how much protein you want in your diet, and the Boomer Boost. Take them together. That gets the max benefit. You take it either for your breakfast or for your lunch. All right. You'll start to lose weight and you're going to get healthy. And I'm telling you, you're going to see it in 3 days. 3 days, 72 hours. Now, what I want you to do is, if you want the combo, either Boomer Boost with Gladiator barley or Boomer Boost with heirloom barley, you can buy them separately. It's up to you, and use discount 5. I've made a box called Longevity Boost Box, where you get the Boomer Boost and your choice of Gladiator barley or heirloom barley, and I've discounted the box compared to buying the individual items. And you can apply discount 5. This is a great way to save money. I want to get these products in your hand. Why? Because you're literally going to get healthier in 72 hours. 72 hours. All right. With that said, and it's going to help to detoxify your body daily if you're doing this daily. All right. With that said, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the products. They work. Follow the way I stack it. You may not take everything I take because it's expensive and people may not have the means to do that. But I give you all these different ways to stack for your particular price point. All right. So you can get the benefits, but it's about the core. Max 35 for the first to boost up your immune system, C60 to soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation with the turmeric, ashwagandha, and the lignans, and take Boomer Boost to boost up your metabolism and boost up your energy levels. When you do that core, you're going to be super healthy. All right. But not everybody can afford that. I understand. And they have to mix and match and do what they, can afford or what they want to target. Throughout this whole broadcast, I'm going to tell you how to stop diabetes, how to stop cardiovascular disease, how to stop dementia, how to stop, this typical American aging that has taken place. You listen to what I have to say, and you're going to be able to get healthy. But it's a holistic approach. It's a holistic approach. It's about proper diet, proper exercise. That means resistance training and cardiovascular fitness. It means balancing exercise. You got to activate that cerebellum. It's stretching, because when you stretch, you're activating different types of neurons. But not only that, you're helping with your tendons and your ligaments, and you're preventing injury. It's about learning new things, reading and writing, talking to people in the real world. When you do all these things, you're getting positive neuroplasticity. You're getting healthier. When you're bringing down all those pro-inflammatory cytokines and you're soaking up those free radicals, guess what? Your endocrine system gets better. Your immune system gets better. When you have a proper gut biome, your skin's better. You think more clearly. You have a better metabolism. You have less inflammation. So when you do this holistically, not just go and buy a supplement or just do yoga. When you do this holistically and you have some mindfulness or some spirituality, you're actually going to bring down your sympathetic nervous system. And you're going to bring up your parasympathetic nervous system. You're going to be calmer, and it's going to bring down your cortisol levels and bring down your heart rate. And eventually, over time, you're going to get much healthier, and you're going to slow down the aging process. I'm older than Alex Jones. I'm a lot smarter than Alex Jones. I'm a lot more educated than Alex Jones. Alex Jones isn't healthy, but he's selling a lot of crap. But the thing is that if you follow my protocol, the way to mix and match it, you're going to get healthy. I want you to walk down this path in 2025 to get healthy. All right. With that said, I want to start with the egg prices in New York. This was posted 2 days ago, and then we're going to continue on with the breaking news.
A 50-year-old institution in Houston, Texas, says they are currently losing $10,000 to $12,000 a month due to these high prices. Co-owners Michael Saigon and Rihanna Sherman join me right now. Michael and Rihanna, thanks so much for being here. How would you assess the price of eggs right now?
So, right before COVID, we were paying on average about $30, $35 a case. Right now, we're paying upwards of $130 a case, which is not sustainable. In the restaurant business, usually, inventory will go up, but it goes right back down. And we're not seeing any decrease in pricing. We're only seeing it go up $4 or $5 a case week over week.
So, Rihanna, is the majority of your money now being spent on eggs?
It really is. A good chunk of our money is being spent on eggs right now. And, a lot of establishments, a lot of restaurants have been increasing their price of eggs. As you mentioned, we are a 50-year-old establishment in Houston, and we have a lot of elderly customers. We have a lot of multi-generational customers. So we are not at that point yet in raising our prices. However, as Michael mentioned, this is not sustainable, and we've heard rumors that it could go on throughout the course of this entire year. If that's the case, we may have to reassess.
So Michael, what kind of an increase are you considering? Well, you haven't raised prices yet, but you're trying to be sensitive to the clientele. What are you going to do?
So we're staying tight right now. We are not planning to raise prices. We're a small business. A lot of our clientele are loyal, coming to us for generations, and we don't want to spike the price for a local business like ourselves. We got through COVID. Now we're dealing with inflation. Now we're dealing with eggflation, aka the bird flu, and we don't know what's going to happen with tariffs. Prices could continue going higher.
That's a good point. And let me just make a really quick caveat here. Because of the censorship on YouTube, all right? And that's where most of the eyeballs in the United States are for the viewers. If people like myself can't talk to you because of the censorship, the censorship of freedom of speech and the censorship of reach. All right. If I can't communicate with you, then how are you going to be able to navigate when H5N1 mutates to human-to-human transmission, which it will happen. That's guaranteed. It will happen. You're going to need me. You're going to need me to navigate through you, for this for you. Just like how I helped thousands of people navigate through the 2020 crisis. Now, if I'm not around, helping you navigate through the problem and informing you what exactly is happening at the molecular level, at the genomic level, at the virology level, at the epidemiological level, how to navigate through it to improve your health. Who are you going to turn to? Because no one is more comprehensive than I am. Nobody. I spend 4 hours to explain to you day after day after day on how to stack to improve your health and your immune system. No one has that sort of fortitude. No one. Now, Alex Jones is bombastic and energetic and has a 3-hour show, but he's not comprehensive like I am. Nobody. Now, if I'm not around, who's going to help you? You think it's going to be, some of the celebrity docs who got it wrong all the time?
Our distributors, we're being told, it could get up to the 150s. It's, we won't have any relief this year, is what I'm being told. We buy hundreds of cases a week, and the difference of $1, $2 up and down, just going up $5 a week or $6 a week, it hurts. We're taking, like you said, a $10,000 hit a month. It just doesn't work. When chicken prices triple during inflation, chicken's not in everything. Eggs as a bakery is the main ingredient in every recipe we have.
That's a great point. So, Rihanna, you're basically saying you're losing money on all egg meals.
We are, as Michael mentioned, at our New York deli, our top selling item is our 2-egg special. And then next to that is our omelets and our egg knit sandwiches. So everything has eggs. And then we have 2 fully stocked bakeries, which I would say 90% of the products have eggs in them.
Sure, of course.
So again, yeah, we're losing on that end, but our other operations are luckily covering the fall, which is why we are fortunate not to have to raise our prices just yet.
All right. Well, we'll be watching as you are right now eating the higher cost. Good to see you both. Thank you so much, Michael and Rihanna.
You too. Thank you so much.
All right, I just set up the call-in for X Spaces. You can just listen in. It's a simulcast, or you can request the mic and you can ask questions or tell me, what you think is going on.
It seems hard to believe that judges want to try and stop us from
what you think is going on in the news, how it's affecting, food costs for you, whatever. Okay, this is interactive. Also, the ones that are watching through the news stream on YouTube, ask questions in the chat too, and I'll take a look at them. It's really important to support the work. Trust me, you're going to need me when H5N1 goes human-to-human transmission, and it is guaranteed to happen. We just don't know exactly when, but it is guaranteed to happen. You're going to need me. Trust me. Okay. Now, this is going to, all right, let's go to France 24 about Pope Francis's health.
Weekend, but that's gone. And he did not preside over the Sunday Angelus prayer and blessing that he usually gives to pilgrims gathered at St. Peter's Square. Now, for the Pope. These weekly audiences are very important. It's his chance to get close with the pilgrims, but unfortunately, he had to cancel it. He also did not preside over a Sunday Mass for artists that was supposed to be held as part of the Catholic Church's Jubilee year. So key events have been missed, and the Vatican has confirmed that he won't be taking part either in the blessing that happens every Wednesday as well. So we know he's going to be in hospital, and we don't know how long. And as they put it, the situation is quite complex.
And that's all for the news, but do stay tuned. Coming up next in a Revisited, 35 years after the horrors of the Ceausescu dictatorship were discovered in Romania, reporters investigated one of the darkest episodes in the country's history. The squalid state-run institutions where thousands of children were locked away and abused.
All right, I want to pivot over to this death toll rises after 11. Death toll rises to 11 after severe flooding. I think this is in Kentucky.
That this will complicate recovery efforts. They are currently working with FEMA and other organizations for additional assistance, but they say that the state of emergency could be extended depending on the severity of the next winter storm. And I also wanted to share this with you as President Trump announcing federal assistance, sending this statement right here, quote, "The president's action authorizes the Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, to coordinate all disaster relief efforts which have the purpose of alleviating the hardship and suffering caused by the emergency on the local population. FEMA will provide appropriate assistance for required emergency measures authorized under Title V of the Stafford Act to save lives and to protect property and public health and safety, and to lessen or avert the threat of a catastrophe in all 120 counties of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Specifically, FEMA is authorized to identify, mobilize, and provide at its discretion equipment and resources necessary to alleviate the impacts of the emergency. Emergency protective measures limited to direct federal assistance will be provided at 75% federal funding." President Trump, on behalf of the White House, issuing that statement. And you are taking a live look at Lexington, Kentucky. Governor Beshear saying that it is incredibly rare for all counties to be under a state of emergency. And yet this is what is happening right now there in Kentucky. They are bracing for another round of severe weather when it comes to cold and also snow. We're going to continue to monitor this. We were hearing Governor Beshear announcing that there will likely be another update at around 2 p.m. local time. So as soon as we see that live stream, we will bring you that additional update. We're going to step away for another 2-minute break. Much more to come.
All right, I have the live stream going on YouTube, on my website, and the simulcast on X Spaces. Again, it is the simulcast on X Spaces is designed for people that are watching or listening to ask questions, tell me their take on what's going on in the news that we're covering for today. It's an interactive show, so please type in your questions or your comments in the live feed or ask questions through X Spaces. So thank you for joining, everybody. Let's continue on. I want to pivot to Al Jazeera. It looks like they're talking about international relations between China and the United States. But
people have rallied by a river that flows through India. They say they're being denied.
We missed that. We missed that. We missed that segment. All right. Apologize there. Okay. What I want to do is shift. This was on Fox Business talking about ditching degrees.
A 2024 report from PayScale highlights 1 in 3 companies no longer list educational requirements on their job postings. Some college dropouts are even starting their own multi-million-dollar companies.
Including our next guest, who dropped out of Berkeley, UC Berkeley, that is, his senior year to start a company attempting to solve drought by cloud seeding.
And joining us now, Rainmaker Technologies CEO, Augustus Dorico. Augustus, welcome. So make it rain with the facts. What is it about tech and meritocracy that goes together? You say college isn't needed for everything.
Yeah, absolutely. What we should care about and what tech cares about, and now what the government cares about for the first time in my life, because of guys like Luke Ferreter, a member of my Teal Fellow class, and because of the action of Elon and Donald Trump, what they do care about is efficacy. And you don't need a college degree that costs $250,000 and that makes you burn 4 years of your life at adult daycare to become effective and capable. And what we care about in Silicon Valley, what we care about at Rainmaker, and now for the first time ever in my lifetime in the US government, is getting the job done. We're producing technology in the United States for the first time to modify the weather to end drought for farms and ecosystems and cities by making it rain more. And I'm inspired by all of the rest of the people in Silicon Valley that are building small modular nuclear reactors, advanced manufacturing foundries, autonomous weapons systems, all without college degrees. This is what we should care about and should be focused on. And there's precedent for it because in the Apollo program, the average age was 25 years old. That's how we got to the moon. In the Manhattan Project, when we built the first nuclear bomb, the average age was also 25 years old. So the fact that our government's age has skewed so much older, rather than taking in the best and brightest, I think is indicative of the decay that we're seeing in our competition with China and just at home writ large.
My brother, Augustus, my brother and I, for years have talked about how we would have been better off if we had not gone to college. It would have saved money, and we would have started our journey to where we wanted to be so much earlier. Are you actually finding it an advantage when you go out to raise money for your company, and when you go out to meet other entrepreneurs that you didn't, finish out your time at Berkeley, that they see you as a go-getter?
I noticed you called out that I went to UC Berkeley, and although while I was there, I didn't dye my hair pink. I think if I had spent any more time there, I'd have been all the more indoctrinated and made narrow in my thinking, because I wouldn't have realized that I have the potential, like anybody else in college now that might be listening to this does, to get into the workforce, to build new technology. I think that if you can get out and start something or work for a great company that's building technology that'll make America great and that will push civilization forward and that will honor God, then you should absolutely do that, rather than run the circuit of fraternities or write more essays about books that you didn't read.
Yeah, and remember, those founders were also very young when you think about the founders of this country. Let's move on to this. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon has had it, and I do mean had it, with older employees insisting on working from home. Just listen to this, Augustus.
The young generation is being damaged by this. That means they may or may not be in your particular step, but they are being left behind. They're being left behind socially, ideas, meeting people. In fact, my guess is most of you live in communities a hell of a lot less diverse than this room.
Augustus, what do you think?
El Segundo in Los Angeles, it's a crazy place that you should visit at some point. It's all of these deep tech companies that are building the future, and they're all teams of totally in-person engineers and scientists and operators. And it's because we're in person, it's because all these companies internally work together face to face, and then also get to share ideas around one another, that we're able to push the technology down the field so much faster. And because of that, I think we have a fighting chance against China when it comes to nuclear and weather modification. And mind you, with respect to weather modification, there's hundreds of millions of dollars being spent by the Chinese Meteorological Administration every year on their programs, and we're left behind. The average age at Rainmaker is 23, And I'm super proud of that. And these people are competing with China, even though like we're just a single startup and they have a 40,000 person agency. And it's only because we're in person, and it's only because we're hiring great people through rainmaker.com. Please apply if you're a craft engineer that wants to drop out of college. They were able to compete now.
You think together and you worship together.
Yeah, how about that?
Dorico, thank you so much. Great to see you. Please come back. We'll talk again. Be well.
All right, well, things are changing. Okay, I want to go to live now with the UN Security Council to discuss this Ukraine-Russia war. This is live.
1,000 casualties among some 11,000 troops dispatched in an effort to leverage their losses for compensation from Russia. This support that is crucial for advancing Pyongyang's illegal WMD and ballistic missiles programs and sustaining the region. Mr. President, 3 years into this brutal war, I express my sincere hope that this year, Ukrainians can return to the peaceful lives they lived before the war. As a once war-torn country, the Korean people know just how painful the path for overcoming the devastating of war is. At the same time, we know that the history is on the side of freedom, justice, human rights, the rule of law, and the UN Charter. In this light, the Republic of Korea reaffirms its commitment to supporting Ukraine and its people until they overcome the current hardship. I thank you.
Both guys. I thank the representative of the Republic of Korea. Now give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to thank ASD Yanka for his comprehensive briefing and express appreciation to Mr. Waters for sharing his valuable insights. The Minsk Agreement represented a significant diplomatic endeavor aimed at peaceful conflict resolution through dialogue and negotiation. The agreement signed in 2014 and 2015 ultimately failed to prevent what would become Europe's largest conflict since World War II. The experience gained from their implementation merits careful consideration by this Council, as it bears direct relevance to our collective responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. In that regard, I would like to make the following observations. First, the implementation of ceasefire provisions, while central to any peace process, requires robust and impartial verification mechanisms. The dedicated efforts of the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission demonstrated both the value and the inherent limitation of existing verification framework within complex security environments. Therefore, it's critical to develop a more robust frameworks for monitoring and verifying compliance with peace agreements, drawing upon the expertise of the United Nations Secretariat and its specialized agencies. Second, the precise formulation of peace agreements require particular attention to implementation sequencing and the establishment of unambiguous benchmarks for compliance. The experience of the Minsk Agreement underscores the importance of clarity in diplomatic instruments, particularly regarding the synchronization of political and security measures. Third, in the years leading up to February 2022, despite clear warning signs, we did not take decisive preventative actions. It's incumbent upon this Council to examine its preventative role as mandated by the Charter and enhance its early warning capabilities through strengthened coordination with regional organizations and relevant United Nations entities.
We are listening in there to the UN Security Council as they're discussing a number of international security threats. Earlier, we were hearing remarks from South Korea talking about the ongoing war between Ukraine and Russia. Now we're hearing from the representative of Somalia. We are going to step away for our final tuna break of the hour, continuing this
Okay, so I'm gonna pivot, and we're gonna. CNN published an hour ago. Bill De Blasio, who used to be the mayor of New York, he's commenting about Eric Adams, the current mayor.
Trying to clean up speculation that he did a dirty deal with the mayor of New York. Mayor Adams saw his corruption case suddenly dropped by the DOJ, leading to more than a half dozen DOJ prosecutors quitting in protest. Since then, the New York mayor doing several interviews sitting beside Reuters czar Tom Homan, saying there was no quid pro quo to let the case go. But eyebrows raised when Homan said this.
If he doesn't come through, I'll be back in New York City, and we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office, up his butt, saying, "Where the hell is the agreement we came to?" So that was a joke. If you play the tape further, he laughs and made a response. Well, I will hold you accountable to. I'll hold ICE accountable to get what they did done. I'm telling him, I need you to come through on your promise. He responds to me that I need to come through on mine.
Joining us now to discuss former New York Mayor Bill De Blasio. Thank you so much for being here.
This man,
what you just
this
heard
man,
from
all right, because I've seen it with my own eyes. All right, this man, De Blasio, is the man that destroyed New York and turned it into a pre-Giuliani era. He himself destroyed New York. And of course, he was pushing, liberal agendas. Don't you remember, get some free fries if you get inoculated? This guy is an idiot. Not only that, not only is an idiot, not only is an idiot, he's on take.
Them doing he doesn't say deal, the plan. I mean, is this a deal that they have made from what you've been listening to?
Look, it doesn't look good for sure. And I think it was a huge mistake for the mayor to go on that show with Tom Honan, who's a figure.
You know what's a huge mistake, De Blasio, is giving free fries for inoculations during the crisis. Not only do you get the heart disease, but you get all the other problems with what you get from the inoculation. Lovely. But De Blasio knows it all. This is the reason why we need to focus on our representatives in the United States. If they're stupid, we need to call them off. And he's stupid.
The ultimate city of immigrants. And here's a man who is extremely disrespectful of immigrants, treats them all like they're criminals, even though the vast majority of law.
What's wrong with having legal immigration, De Blasio? What's wrong with that? Yeah, it's a city of immigrants, but it's supposed to be legal immigrants, not illegal immigrants. There's a big difference there. And what it is this, can you really trust a guy that has a neck like that? I mean, literally, I gotta blow up the screen here. I mean, really, does he look like a paragon of health? Shit.
So that was a mistake to begin with. This situation's a mess, Sarah, obviously. But what I'm concerned about at the same time is, a quid pro quo is a very different matter than a policy decision. Whether I agree with him or not, I often don't. Eric Adams has said he wants to do something different about immigration than some of the rest of us have done previously. That has to be seen in its own light. But right now, it's incumbent upon Eric Adams to set this record straight. He has basically, in my view, he has this week to do it. His entire political career, his time as mayor, everything comes down to this week. He has to convince the people of New York City right now that he will take on Donald Trump when Donald Trump does something that hurts New York City. I don't mind if he agrees with Trump on a particular matter or has to curry favor.
If you align with Trump, with immigration, if you align with Trump, then you are going to be attacked by the Democratic Party, and they're going to try to push you out of power. See, Mayor Adams, when he was running for mayor, made it seem as though he was going to be harder on crime, tougher on crime, right? He was going to clean up the city. He had, the street cred because he was part of the police force. So people voted him in because we didn't want people like him, like de Blasio, that literally destroyed the city. Not figuratively, literally. The rats in the city were being better fed than the people that are elderly in the city under de Blasio. Okay, so they're just gonna, the whole machine, the whole Democratic machine is gonna, push against Mayor Adams, because they know, the Democratic machine knows that if you have a mayor that aligns with ICE, aligns with Trump, with this illegal immigration that's going on, and you force deportations out of the city and back to the illegal immigrants' home. If that mayor aligns with the Trump administration, then ICE will be successful. The moment that that mayor decides not to, then it's going to cause a lot of problems for ICE to do its operations, because the mayor is going to tell the NYPD not to comply. But the way it's set up right now, Mayor Adams is aligning with Trump and aligning with Holman on doing these deportations. The Democratic Party doesn't want to hear that. Now, why? Do you think that they really care? Do you think they really care about the immigrants, these illegal immigrants, the Democratic Party? No, they don't. What they do care about is flow of funds to the state and to the city coffers. New York State and New York City is hemorrhaging people. The populations are declining. That means that less money is flowing into the school system because they have less pupils. Well, if you have less kids in the school, you get less funding, independent on if they're legal or illegal. In addition, when they do the census, they're looking at a declining population at the state level. That means there's less representation for the state of New York in Congress. That means that a major blue state loses political power. They're faking the numbers and they're trying to pump the system, priming the pump with illegal immigrants to keep the population numbers in New York up so they maintain the political power that they have in Congress. That's what this is about. It's not about, oh, we're an immigrant city throughout the 400 years. That's horseshit. It's all about political power and money flows because of population. And we need to wake up to that. New York is supposed to decline in power because the population is declining. But they keep on faking it. They keep on faking the numbers with the census, with these illegal inflows. They keep on bolstering up their Department of Education at the city level because they keep on bringing in illegal immigrant children into their school system. That's what's really happening. It has nothing to do with...
That happens all the time in politics. But if Trump is doing something that hurts New York City, the people of New York City have to believe Eric Adams will have their back.
What did you think of the corruption case on it?
Do you think that the illegal immigration is helping New York City? It's hurting it. The crime is up. I cover it almost every day when we play Cash Jordan. Human trafficking is up. There's this slavery that's taking place with some of these illegal immigrants and these gangs that are running the show in New York. Services for citizens, legal citizens, are declining because there's no money left because it's going to illegal immigrants. If nonprofits that are supposed to help the elderly and our veterans can't help them because they're spending money to help illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. How's that helping New York? It's not. It's all bullshit. Just like everything during his administration in New York, de Blasio, was all bullshit.
I thought it was a weak case, honestly.
You thought it was weak?
Yeah.
When you hear, though, from prosecutors who led the case, one of them saying about the decision to drop it, no system of ordered liberty can allow the government to use the carrot of dismissing charges or the stick of threatening to bring them again to induce an elected official to support its policy objectives. Is there something dirty going on here? These
Trump is using reverse lawfare because the deep state was using lawfare, not only against Trump, not only against his cabinet, not only against his advisors, but also individuals that have aligned themselves to the Trump administration, either at the city level or at the state level. So Trump saying, enough with the lawfare. We need to get the job done and undo these bad Democrat policies that have ruined cities in America. New York is a shithole because of Democratic policies. Literally, a shithole. I'm not kidding. I'm not speaking hyperbole. You have people literally taking a dump on the MTA train system in the car, in the train car, literally shitting in the train car.
prosecutors, by the way, many of them clerked for conservative judges, many of them considered conservative voices.
Sarah, from my point of view, everything that's happening at the Justice Department is dirty right now. The Justice Department is being politicized, weaponized in a way we haven't seen since the Watergate years.
Trump is weaponizing the DOJ. What the hell happened during the Biden administration? Are you fucking kidding me? Are you what fucking planet are you on, de Blasio? Fuck.
Here, look, these folks had a chance at Justice Department to say these are weak charges. We choose not to pursue them. We have other cases we think are more important. That would have been fine. President Trump could have pardoned him. I don't love the way he's using the pardon, obviously, but he could have done that. I think it was very cynical and inappropriate for the Justice Department to act the way they did. It put Adams in this situation now. But now the onus is on Adams to prove him wrong. So far, he bluntly has not done a good enough job doing that. He has a chance now to fix that.
Do you really think he has a chance to fix that? Just judging from some of the comments that he has made and some of the things he has said, and sort of appearing on Fox and Friends in a place where this is a very heavily Democratic city.
He has a chance to fix it because history always tells us there's a chance to turn things around. People have to
They'll all go after Adams because he wants to align with Trump to kick out the illegal aliens. And heaven forbid that anyone from New York, Democrat or Republican or independent, green, blue, whatever, heaven forbid that you actually would want the city to have legal immigration.
From him. And if he doesn't do it really quickly, events are going to overtake him. And the unfortunate reality is we have in this city right now a series of choices before us. We have an election for mayor, 4 months Democratic primary, which is decisive. If it's not going to be Eric Adams at this point, it looks like it's going to be Andrew Cuomo, a man charged with numerous
See?
sexual
See? You see all this taekwondo crap that they're doing at the Democratic Party? Demonize Adams because he's aligned with Trump, because he's for deportation of the illegals. And then all of a sudden Cuomo comes in and saves the day, resurrects his political future from the dead, and becomes mayor of New York. Now, don't we remember all of the problems that we had with Cuomo during the crisis? Don't you remember that? Do we really want to have Cuomo in? Now, what will happen is that he'll get in because there's a political machine that's corrupt. Adams gets kicked out. Cuomo comes in, and he's going to use all of his, his lawfare and his power as mayor to fight ICE. And that's the political play that the Democratic Party is hoping for.
On other things, I mean, this is a very sad reality for New York City right now. So when I say he has one chance to fix it, it's almost like a prayer that something gets better in this city, and the mayor shows that leadership to help us get out of this mess.
Here's why I asked whether he has a chance to fix it. When you look at what happened surrounding him, never mind the case being dropped by the Trump administration. And by the way, the Deputy Attorney General has said it wasn't dropped on the merits of the case. It was dropped because he wouldn't be able, if he was doing this and being in court, wouldn't be able to go through with Donald Trump's initiatives on immigration. So it wasn't about the merits of the case. But when you look at what happened surrounding Mayor Adams, you had, and I have to read this because there's so many, you had so many people resign, a whole bunch of aides, but the first deputy mayor resigned, the school chancellor resigned, the deputy mayor for public safety resigned, the chief counsel resigned, the police commissioner resigned, the health commissioner resigned. That leaves the city with a whole lot of, no, oversight, no management of certain things, because they are looking at this case and going, we don't want anything to do with it. What does that tell you about his leadership?
It's deeply troubling. It's deeply troubling. And the fact is, and it's fascinating and painful to watch something like this, because that simple act of going on Fox and Friends, that alone, or having a meeting with Honan, poisoned this situation. That was his mistake. Again, he is the elected mayor of New York City. We should be doing everything by elections. One of the other things.
Shouldn't he be working with the president is a question.
Well, in general, any mayor should work with the president, try and get the best out of that relationship for the people we serve. But the fact
I mean, think about that question that the anchor on CNN said. Should she be working with the president? See, it's the other side, the Democratic Party, also the mainstream media, in the most part, is all about stonewalling the Trump administration. That's all they want to do.
One of the things Justice Department has actually said for generations is they should not interfere with elections. So there is an important grain of truth in saying resolve cases before you get too close to election. Resolve them one way or another. Either bring them and act on them or drop them. But the bottom line is, yes, this is a profound crisis. If he doesn't do something different right now, it's obviously the end of the line. But that's bad for New York City on a whole nother level. Because
it's the end of the line if he doesn't pull through and keep the illegals here. Why? Oh, you need the money. Oh, you need the bodies to make sure that you have a census count that gives you the power in Congress. It's not about the needs of the illegal immigrant. It's the needs of the powerful in the Democratic Party. They need to maintain that power. And then riding on a white horse is Cuomo. Cuomo is going to save New York. Just like he saved us during COVID. Shit. Bullshit.
And look at the ramifications. Look at the likely next leader and what happens. And we get plunged into a new era of scandal. This is not something that should be happening in the biggest city in this country, the greatest city in the world, in my view. Here we are. I'm just praying he can give people some reason to believe again. If he can't, then events will overtake him.
Will you run?
My time is, I was honored to serve for 8 years. My time is done.
All right. Bill de Blasio, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I don't think he can run. I thought that the law was the 2 terms. There was 3 terms for Bloomberg, and then I think the law was written to go to 2 terms only. So I don't think he can run. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen peptides. This has a very extensive amino acid profile. So take a look at it on my website, the label. Very high quality collagen. It'll help to improve your joints, your muscles, your bones, your skin, your hair, your nails. Take it every day. You get a big scooper. I mix it with soft foods like hummus or yogurt. Some people mix it with milk. Some people mix it in a smoothie or with filtered water. It's up to you, but take it every day. Do some resistance training, and it'll help you to build muscle and to improve your joints. Now, by taking this, right, and doing a protocol that I have with K2 and D3 at higher dose levels, you can actually reverse osteoarthritis. Now, the first, when you do that protocol, it takes time and it may be painful for the first month or so while you're reversing the osteoarthritis. But after going into like the 7th, 8th, 9th month of that protocol, your arthritis is gone. All right. But there is a protocol to do that. All right. And another show, I'll talk about it. But the point here is take the collagen, improve your joint health, improve your muscles, improve your bones, improve your skin, hair, and nails. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the collagen every day to improve your health. Really important. I have a structural nano silver toothpaste. I'm literally the best toothpaste that you can buy. It has no fluoride in it. Why is there no fluoride in there, Dr. Paul Cottrell? Thank you for asking. Fluoride makes you stupid. All right. So take this structural nano silver toothpaste. It will whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, maintain a good gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line, improve those bleeding gums, right? Some people have bleeding gums, especially when you get older. This is going to improve it, reduce that inflammation, and heal the gum line. This will neutralize the pathogens that create the plaque. And by having good oral hygiene, you're reducing cardiovascular disease and you're reducing valvular disease. Lots of people that are older start to develop valvular disease. Why? Because they have poor oral hygiene. So please go to my store, get a few tubes of this toothpaste. It is literally the best toothpaste that you can buy. You can't get a better toothpaste than this. And instead of supporting Alex Jones that gives you a inferior product, why not go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get a superior product? And not only that, I tell you how to stack all this stuff to improve your health and slow down the aging process. Now, do you think Alex Jones is slowing down the aging process? I don't think so. Now, you've been watching me for more than 5 years. Have I aged? Why? Is Dr. Paul Cottrell a vampire? No. He actually has an anti-aging protocol that works. All right. Now let's take a look at. Oh, this is interesting. Let's raise our blood pressure by watching Mark Levin. And when our blood pressure increases, I'll tell you how to decrease your blood pressure.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Sunday. Thanks for being here. We have 2 great guests, Newt Gingrich and Senator Tom Cotton. But before we get to them, let me tell you why I do this show. My favorite movie, since I was a little guy, is Patton. And at the opening of Patton, George C. Scott gives a speech. And something stuck in my head for all these decades, when I was a young kid, all the way to now. The phrase he said was, "Glory is fleeting. glory is fleeting. You know, sometimes people will be on TV or radio or other forms of entertainment and they get big heads. And they do it because they want big ratings. They do it because they want to be recognized when they walk down the street. I can promise you this, that's not me. I don't care about any of that. It's not the way I was brought up, and it's not the way I roll. But I'll tell you how I do roll. This morning I was at a favorite local diner here in Florida, and I know the waitresses, and they tend to be middle-aged, and I'm quite friendly with all the folks in there when I go in. And one in particular came up to me and said, "Birthright citizenship." I said, "Yeah." My husband and I were having a debate, and he was Googling birthright citizenship, and he said the courts ruled that it's in the Constitution and so forth. And I explained to him, no, read the 14th Amendment. She said, jurisdiction has nothing to do with the fact that somebody is born in the United States of an alien or a diplomat or what have you. And I said, where'd you get that from? She said, you. Has it got it from me? She said, yeah, the other week you did a whole show on birthright citizenship. That's why I do this show. Wonderful lady, just terrific. And when people come up to me and they tell me things like this, that's what gives me the motivation and the desire to do this program, not the rest of it. Not the rest of it. You'll notice I'm very focused in these monologues on trying to give you something that is substantive. You're here on a Saturday evening or tonight on a Sunday evening. You want to wind down, but you're here because you want to learn something. You've already heard all the comments, all the opinions over and over and over again. I'm not here to be the final loop on Sunday and to regurgitate the same thing. That's not why I'm here. I'm an activist. I am a writer. I like to think of myself as a thinker. These things keep me up at night. I like to think about them all the time and try and find solutions and work them out. And that's what I hope I bring to you. That's why I do this program. And I'm going to do the same thing right now. Sanctuary cities. We talk about it like it's no big deal. Sanctuary cities. What's a sanctuary city? What's a sanctuary state? They're illegal, unconstitutional cities and states.
Yep.
The Democrat Party is in charge of sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. What does this mean? Well, let's get into this. This is very important because it has to do with your lifestyle. It has to do with what kind of country you want to be. They talk about a constitutional crisis. Every constitutional crisis we have in this country has been caused by the far left and the Democrat Party and their courts and their elected officials. Every single one. You and I, we are constitutional originalists. We hold up the Constitution. We say, what does it say? What does that mean? What did the framers mean? What's the context of this language? They don't do any of that. They wave it around while they're attacking it. And the people who wrote it. This means nothing to them. Because how can you be a radical leftist, a Marxist, or an Islamist and give a damn about the Constitution? You don't. And they don't. It's just so much noise for them when they say it. So we have Article 1, Section 8. Congress has exclusive authority to what? Quote, establish a uniform rule of naturalization, unquote. Our Constitution is written in such a way where the federal government is given certain powers and all the rest of the powers are left to the states. It's called federalism. It's the 10th Amendment. But the powers that are given to the federal government, unless they're explicitly said to be shared, are plenary. In other words, they're supposed to be few, but they're powerful. So the Constitution says the federal government's in charge of immigration, period. Not AOC, not New York City, not San Francisco, the federal government, the national government. Well, Mark, what about Texas and Governor Abbott? What were they doing when Biden was president of the United States? They were actually upholding and enforcing federal immigration law, whereas Joe Biden was violating it and should have been impeached for it. Not only violated a little part of the immigration laws, he violated the whole construct of our immigration laws.
I'm sensing that his blood pressure is going up.
wide open borders. And the result, the greatest level of slavery since the end of the Civil War. Women sold into sex slavery, children sold into sex slavery, and on and on and on, as we've talked about it before. Is that humane? No, it's not humane. Are sanctuary cities and states humane? No, they're not humane. Look at what's taking place in these cities and states. But humane or not, that's not even the point. The Constitution's the point. These people yell constitutional crisis whenever they don't get to advance their radical left-wing agenda. So Article 1, Section 8 makes it abundantly clear that even a left-wing Harvard law professor can understand that Congress has this power. But what about the president? The president's been delegated authority, and a lot of authority under immigration laws, under a federal law, which I'll get to in a moment. So this isn't a federalism issue. It's not a 10th Amendment issue. Donald Trump is president. The federal government makes immigration policy and is supposed to enforce the immigration laws, period. Period. So what's with these states and sanctuary cities and states? It's called nullification. I want you to remember that word. Nullification. What's nullification? When local and state governments declare they will defy federal law or the federal constitution, in this case, federal immigration law, that they won't enforce it, that they will obstruct it, they will obstruct compliance with it, they will sabotage efforts by the federal government to enforce it and federal policies, and set themselves apart from the federal government, apart and above from the federal government. They will decide in the city what immigration.
Yeah, I'm sure that he's starting to get tachycardia and higher blood pressure here. Guess what? This nullification, when you hear like Maxine Waters or AOC say fight the government or fight the power or fight this, and well, guess what? That's what they're talking about right there. Nullification. And throughout these next 4 years with Trump, it's all about it at the city level. It's all, and at the state level, it's going to be in these blue states, nullification. What did we hear de Blasio say? Well, if Adams doesn't do nullification, we're going to go after him. And Cuomo is going to get in and lead the party. So Mark Levin's right. But watch, his blood pressure is increasing. I'm pretty sure.
Policy is. They will decide in a blue state what immigration policy is. That's nullification of federal law, which is utterly and completely destructive of our Constitution. Nullification is not only unconstitutional, it was used by the slave states, starting with South Carolina, in the lead up to the Civil War to justify secession from the Union. See, the Democrat Party hasn't changed all that much, or the characters have changed, the groups have changed, but the ideology has never changed. The Democrat Party is a destructive party that has never embraced the Constitution, not from its earliest days. It's not only the party of slavery, it's not only the party of segregation, it's not only the party of eugenics, it's not only the party of Jim Crow, it's now the party of nullification all over again, 160 years later. In other words, the slave states declared they could, would, and did nullify federal law, even the Constitution, and the Confederacy was born. Their argument was, look, we states within our state will decide what part of the Constitution applies or if the federal government's applying it properly. Now, you can challenge these things and so forth and so on, but you can't declare them nullified. Nullified. For one, we have the Supremacy Clause. For two, we have the entire construct of the Constitution. Powers are divided. We also have 8 U.S.C. Section 1182. It gave to the president broad authority to prevent aliens from entering the United States. It's a law. We also have 8 U.S.C. Section 1373 that prohibits local and state governments from banning the sharing of information about aliens and their legal status and whether they're criminals and so forth and so on. Federal law. So they're not only nullifying the construct of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, they're also nullifying federal law. we actually have federal district courts that are good with this, just as they're good with trying to control the executive branch, where you have about a dozen of these knucklehead federal judges, these lawyers in black robes, many of whom are nothing more than bad lawyers in black robes, who are trying to sabotage and usurp President Trump's perfectly legitimate agenda in managing the executive branch, because after all, he's in the Constitution. We have what's called a president. He was elected by all the people, an election of all the people, and he's allowed to manage the executive branch. So the Biden regime actually supported the acts of these sanctuary states and cities, sabotaging the Constitution and federal law from within, because that's the Democrat Party. So what's to stop local and state governments from nullifying all kinds of constitutional federal laws? What if a state says, you know what? We're going to nullify what the Democrats did here. We're going to nullify this. We're not going to recognize that. Well, why isn't that legitimate if it's legitimate for sanctuary cities? A little bit of history for you folks out there. The nullification crisis of 1832 and 33, just a very short explanation. South Carolina, again, declared federal tariffs because they're a cotton growing state. Tariffs were very high. It was the only way for the feds to raise money. There was no federal income tax. So they put these very heavy tariffs. John Quincy Adams did first, and they were upheld by Andrew Jackson later. To make South Carolina said, we're not going to abide by these tariffs. You're killing our economy. We decided within the state of South Carolina that your law is to be nullified. We're not telling other states what to do. We just made that decision. President Andrew Jackson said this would lead to the breakup of the Union. We can't have states going in 50 different directions where we have a federal law that is legitimate and constitutional, and some state decides they don't want to. Imagine if other states did that. So they eventually reached a compromise, but Jackson was prepared to send the army into South Carolina. They actually passed a statute in Congress called the Force Act, but they had a compromise, and they eventually reduced the amount of the tariffs on cotton and agriculture over a period of time. But that was the predecessor to what would become nullification of the anti-slavery movements in the North. That was the predecessor to states nullifying their obligation to be part of the Union. It was the pretext to secession, nullification, their type of sanctuary states. Came back in the 1950s, opposition to desegregation after Brown versus Board of Education. That was a Supreme Court decision where the Supreme Court corrected its Plessy versus Ferguson decision, where separate was equal. Brown versus Board of Education said, no, separate but equal isn't equal. We were wrong about that. So the court ruled in favor of desegregation, or if you prefer, integration of the races. The Supreme Court ruled in Cooper versus Aaron in 1958 that states could not nullify federal laws involving desegregation and integration. That is Brown versus Board of Education. So they ruled again. It came to a head in Arkansas. Governor Orville Faubus, who was a segregationist, he called up the National Guard to block 9 black students from entering Little Rock Central High School. You may have heard of that. President Eisenhower, he said, wait a minute, you don't get to nullify, number one, what happened after the Civil War, number two, the Constitution, number three, a Supreme Court decision. So he sent active duty military down to Little Rock, nationalized the National Guard, and they walked those 9 black students into that high school and protected them. That's what Eisenhower did with the old Democrat Party. So this issue of state sovereignty and federal authority, it's not always clear.
The Democratic Party has always been a party of slavery, always, from day one. And for the ones that are black and that are supporting the Democratic Party, you need to learn your history. Now, why do you think that they're supporting illegal immigration? Other than, you know, the power grab, maintain power in Congress and to get money for their local Department of Education. Why do you think that is? Cheap labor. And doesn't that sound like slavery? But you're supposed to believe that the Democratic Party is for the black. Yeah, right. You need to get off of your urban plantation because you've been sold a bunch of goods. For the ones that are black, you've been sold a bunch of goods from the Democratic Party that's not helping you. It's only making it worse. These services that cities are providing these illegal aliens are taking away from other services that you may need. Still supporting the Democratic Party? The party of slavery? Always has, always will be.
There are debates, there's litigation, and that's okay. But what is clear is that the issue of nullification of sanctuary cities and sanctuary states is utterly and completely unconstitutional. It's settled by the construct of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, the Civil War, Supreme Court decisions, whether lower courts want to adhere to it or not. Every single city and state, I want you to look at the list of the states and the cities and the towns that have self-declared nullification
California,
from the federal Constitution,
Colorado,
just like the Confederacy,
Connecticut,
that they are
Illinois,
going to prevent,
Massachusetts,
they are going to obstruct,
New
they're
Jersey,
going to slow walk through whatever
New York,
they can to undermine the ability to enforce our
North
federal
Dakota,
immigration laws,
Oregon, Rhode Island,
under which the
Utah,
Constitution gives plenary
Vermont,
power
Washington,
to the federal
Washington,
government,
D.C., New
in which
Orleans,
the president is responsible for
Baltimore,
overseeing
Lansing,
and executing
Atlanta,
the entire
Santa Fe,
sanctuary movement.
New York
Its
City,
attempt to nullify the
Philadelphia,
Constitution and federal law is a throwback
Louisville,
to the
Albany,
Confederacy.
Lancaster,
It is a throwback
Richmond,
to the days of slavery and segregation, to today, to the days of slavery due to Democrat Party open border policies that took place and the horrendous, inhumane consequences. So my point is this: the old Democrat Party, the party of the Confederacy, has never died. Sure, its issues have changed, the groups have changed, but the ideology has not. See, the Democrat Party has never embraced Americanism. It's never embraced the Constitution. They don't embrace Americanism and the Constitution. Well, they keep lecturing us about Americanism and the Constitution. Don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. And what they do is damnable.
I'm glad that Mark Levin didn't stroke out. But to improve your cardiovascular health and your immune system, get the dual purpose product that I offer, olive leaf extract. How does it work? It brings down inflammation, and it also helps to lower your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So by taking olive leaf extract every day, you're going to help with your immune system, and you're also going to help with your cardiovascular system. Because when you bring down your LDL levels, you're going to have less LDL that's oxidized. When you bring down inflammation, if you bring down inflammation at the vascular level, then you're reducing that signal to building plaque, because it starts with inflammation and causing an irritation in the intima of the blood vessel. And then eventually there's a slight tear, and then LDL and oxidized LDL gets into the middle of your blood vessel called the media and creates plaque by being eaten up by a macrophage that turns into a foam cell. Well, if you have less LDL and less inflammation, you have less plaque buildup. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract so you don't stroke out when you're watching Mark Levin explain how the Democratic Party is doing a controlled demolition of the United States. Also, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. Get the magnesium and zinc to boost up that immune system. Take it every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a double dose. Take one in the morning, take one in the evening. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. Why? Because it's water soluble. Vitamin C and magnesium also boosts up your immune system and improves your skin. Plus, you don't get scurvy. You don't want to get scurvy. Please go to my store, get that vitamin C and magnesium, boost up that immune system. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a double dose. Drink it with filtered water because it's water soluble. Make sure that you use discount 5. All right, let's pivot over. Illinois Dems are discussing President Trump's budget cuts. So let's just pop in to see what they have to say here.
Reiterar que como representante de uno de los distritos de gente más trabajadora, estamos aquí como delegación del estado de Illinois para...
I mean, it's amazing. A big issue, and they're not speaking it in English. Forget it. All right, I'm going to pivot over to France 24. Hopefully they're talking about the emergency summit, the EU summit on Ukraine.
Meeting those. There are literally dozens of journalists here in the courtyard of the Elysee. The point is, according to officials here at the palace, this is the first step in a process that's going to be launched and that will be inclusive to all the other countries in the EU. Some countries have already been complained about not being invited here today. But what has been said is that the Elysee wanted to convene this meeting rapidly with those who are willing and able to act when it comes to the security architecture of Europe. What's at stake here basically is to try and come up with a common position when it comes to Ukraine. As you know, Donald Trump has spoken to Vladimir Putin for an hour and a half on the telephone. We learned that this weekend during this conference that took place in Germany's European Security Conference in Munich, where Vice President Vance took a pretty aggressive stance when it came to the US's position. As for Europe, he'd also spoken to NATO, basically making it very clear that the United States would no longer be a pillar of European security. So what's at stake here is to try and create a new architecture in which there would be a common position, potentially common investment when it comes to military equipment, but also a common position for Ukraine, for example, to put something on the table in order to be included in the peace talks between the US and Russia, which are told to will probably include Ukraine, though that is not sure. But for now, the United States have made it quite clear that Europe was off the table. So instead of begging, this is what we've been told here at the Elysee Palace. The idea was to come with a proposal that could include monitoring the ceasefire, maybe backup to Ukrainian forces when it comes to securing a future border or ceasefire line, and indeed a commitment of Europe to Ukraine and more broadly, Europe's security. This is very much what's on the line here today.
Thank you very much, James Andre, for your reporting. James Andre reporting there live from the Elysee Palace, where that emergency meeting is taking place. And of course, we've been talking about this meeting in Paris. There were meetings in Munich, future meeting in Riyadh, a phone call between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. The war in Ukraine is at the heart of a diplomatic tug of war that seems to be excluding Ukraine. Charlotte Hughes and Jean Barrère have this report on what Ukrainians themselves think of the recent developments, including those talks between the US and Russia to end the war.
Away from diplomatic discussions and international summits, Ukrainian soldiers continue to train in the hopes of repelling Moscow's forces. Russia now controls around a fifth of Ukraine's territory, mostly in the south and east. Donald Trump appears intent on ending the war with a deal that involves making concessions to Moscow, a troubling prospect for these soldiers.
I think it'll be chaos. The fighters, the guys who are now fighting for our land, for pieces of our land, I think they won't listen to Zelensky and will keep pushing because this is our land. How can we give it to someone just because they took it? I don't think it's going to work out.
Well, you know, the thing is that both sides are exhausted. Both sides need other countries to help continue on the war. Putin's exhausted with the war, and Zelensky is exhausted with the war. Zelensky can't continue fighting if the United States pulls out. That's why he's so worried, and he's begging the Eurowhiners to fund continuing on. All right, let's go to CNN, where this is a Russia expert on the most important issue for U.S. with the talks with Putin. So let's go with this
Joining me now to discuss this, CNN contributor and former CNN Moscow bureau chief, Jill Doherty. Thank you for being here. I want to ask, what do you see as the most important issue for the U.S. to raise during these talks with Russia in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday?
Well, ultimately, I think the most important thing overall is long-term security. I mean, they eventually will probably come up with some sort of immediate ceasefire or whatever you want to call it. But nobody really believes that the ceasefire is going to last until you know where you're going after the ceasefire, or at least during the ceasefire. Because the question is really, would Russia be able to come back after some type of period and perhaps you attack Ukraine again? Or as some of the countries in the region believe or fear, that they might actually, try to invade or move.
Let's dissect what she's saying. All right, let's put a common sense hat on for a second. All right, and you don't have to be a geopolitical expert on this. All right, Trump's going to be in office for 4 years. Do you really think that he's going to allow Putin to re-engage in military operations after a peace agreement? Of course not. And I wouldn't be surprised that Trump pushes for integration back into the G8, which is good for the United States, for Russia to be part of those conferences and summits, but also it weakens the BRICS. So it's a great play for Trump. Trump's not going to allow Putin to do that. Putin's 72 years old. So you kick this thing out 4 years. 72 plus 4 is 76. Do you really think that Putin will have the energy, the health, or the backing of the Russian people to reinitiate a war effort with Ukraine? I don't think so. So let's stop pretending. It's not going to be Putin. The question is, what will happen with the president that replaces Putin? And I suspect that good economic integration with the Western world of Russia is going to strengthen ties between Russia and the United States. So the United States can use them as an ally for a multi-front war with the CCP. So stop pretending. Just get this damn war over. But Zelensky, he knows that he's near the end of the line and that he's going to get kicked out as president of Ukraine in elections, and his power is gone. His cocaine stash is gone. And he's like he's like a person drowning in the ocean. And he's looking for someone to attach to prevent him from drowning.
Region. Now, the Russians say we have no intention, but still, this really is the question. Short term, and obviously, Paul, right now, there's a lot of short term going on. I mean, the pace of this is very quick. There aren't a lot of details, but the details have to be clear if you're going to have long-term security.
What do you make of the fact that Ukraine will not be present?
There was a question that was brought up in the chat. What will happen when Canada says that they're not going to be selling any more oil to the U.S.? The United States can produce a lot of oil and gas, all right? The Midwest does import quite a bit of energy from Canada. Short term, what that would mean is that gas prices and energy prices will go up. Brent will go up. WTI will go up per barrel. Natural gas futures will go up. But it's the big effect with gasoline prices is going to be in the Midwest. But over time, through increasing energy production in the United States and shifting natural gas and shifting gasoline and production from the United States into and shipping it into the Midwest, midterm, right, the prices would start to go down. But short term, the Midwest is going to feel the largest effect by it. The southern states, the East Coast, they'll feel the pressure of the price moves in the futures market. But supply isn't really going to be disrupted. The supply disruption is going to affect the Midwest. Now, because there's a lot of manufacturing in the Midwest, that's going to suppress manufacturing. So in the short term, it may, for some cases, you may see a reduction in manufacturing because of it while we restructure this. But this is the whole point. We should increase not just our energy production, but our energy distribution. This goes to being able to move energy around the country when we need to. It also means that we need to invest in our energy grid, our electrical grid. It's not just fossil fuel, but just the electrical energy distribution grid has to be improved and hardened, especially through an EMP. And having ports for LNG to be able to export. So this short term, it's going to cause prices, if Canada does this, it will cause prices to go up in the United States. It's going to affect the Midwest the most, especially with supply. And most people are going to see it with gasoline. And when gasoline is too high, car prices go down. People have less money in their wallet because of the cost of gasoline. We're already having problems with food inflation. So because of that, people are probably going to suppress their spending. There's probably going to be a demand shift with their spending, at least short term. But we need this signal. We need this stress signal. All right. We need to stop pretending, oh, we're afraid to have high gasoline prices, so we can't negotiate with Canada. We can't, let me rephrase that. We can't push tariffs on Canada because we're worried about high gasoline prices in the Midwest, or we're worried about elevated future prices in the energy markets. That's the wrong thinking. We use that as a signal, a social signal, to harden our own energy production and energy distribution. That's the right way to look at this. It's better to take short-term pain and have to be more self-reliant in the long term.
These talks in Saudi Arabia, but instead will be part of dual negotiations in Kyiv.
I think if you talk to President Zelensky, probably off the record, he would be very concerned. I think the Ukrainians, there's no question, feel that they are being at least put in second place at this point, because a lot of the immediate dialogue is between the United States and Russia, and specifically between Putin and Trump. And Zelensky is feeling that he is somehow, the second.
Another person asked a question. Dr. Paul, do you still talk to brother? Any chance he will be on your stream again? I don't talk to brother, but not just that. Think about what we went through. The crisis in 2020, which lasted a few years, it's like a war. And there's lots of activity, but you don't keep on looking back at the war once the war's over. Now, there is an afterglow, there's an aftershock of the war. But think about all those people that served in World War II. A lot of them, not all of them, But a lot of them sat in a rocking chair talking about the war, what they did at the Battle of the Bulge, what they did when they parachuted into, wherever. How did they storm the beach that's in some island in the Pacific? And then you had other veterans that just moved on with their life. If you listen to people that just keep on resurrecting those warriors, they're boring people. And they're not looking forward into the future. The war's over. There is no reason to keep on resurrecting it. You need to pay attention to what's happening in front of us and not so much the rear view mirror. So that's the lesson learned here. People that have been doing this kind of podcasting during the crisis of 2020 or independent journalism, whatever you want to call it. That was the war years, the COVID war years. But sitting in a rocking chair, keep on talking about the good old days, that's retarded. That's totally retarded. You know what you need to really worry about? H5N1. What's going on with our weakened immune systems? How do we get healthy? As the titer levels start to go down, as our bodies start to heal through the aftershock, how do we reboot into having a life of purpose? And how do we reboot our lives where we move forward in a positive direction, especially for ones that have lost people in their family during the COVID war years? All right, that COVID war years is just like World War II. It's over. Don't keep on resurrecting bullshit. But there's a lot of podcasters, a lot of celebrity doctors like Dr. Drew and others that just keep on resurrecting it. They're no different than veterans in a war that sit in a rocking chair thinking about the good old days. I don't do that. It's that simple. I only have one direction, and that's forward. There is no such thing as backward.
Thought in the administration, not the first. So that is a problem, but he does not have, at this point, a really strong negotiating position. The war has been going very poorly at this point, or at least it's kind of in a situation of stasis. And so, what does he do? He has to make the best of a bad situation. And he was counting originally on the United States to really, stand by them. Now, the administration, there are a lot of, as you can see, I'm saying now, but because there are a lot of sides to this, but the administration would say, no, they will be part of this. Don't worry. But I think the Ukrainians are worried. When do they come into the negotiations? When everything's already on the table and they don't get a way to define where everything's going?
Well, Trump's special envoy to Russia and Ukraine says there will need to be concessions from Russia. What do you think that could look like?
I am not quite sure what that would be. At this point, it appears in public statements, at least initially by the administration, and especially administration officials, Secretary Hegseth, the defense secretaries especially, that Russia is going to get a promise of no NATO membership for Ukraine. It will probably also get territorial concessions, meaning the territory that it has taken from Ukraine will remain under Russian control. They are looking at economic sanctions. You just mentioned that it would be huge for Russia to get a lot of those economic sanctions rolled back. But so far, I truly don't see a lot that Russia is being asked to give at this point. That said, there aren't a lot of specific, concrete details of what we're talking about. There's a lot of talk we've got to end it and end it quickly, but exactly how is still a big question.
Well, European leaders will be holding an emergency summit tomorrow in response to the U.S. leaving them out from these peace talks. How do you think the Kremlin views this push from Europe to unify without the support of the U.S.?
Oh, well, I mean, if you look at the Russian media, they're very happy about this because they feel that the Europeans are panicking, that the Europeans aren't quite sure. They feel that they too are being, left out of the initial negotiations or discussions, which they are. And they also feel that they are the people who will be called upon, the Europeans, to carry out some type of ceasefire. So they are worried as well. And if Europe is worried and they are concerned about the United States and they're trying to get their act together and be unified, that is exactly where Vladimir Putin wants them. He wants them divided, confused, and worried. And so right now, I think Putin probably feels very good about this. You can just hear in Fred's report, the quote from the Kremlin. They're pretty happy about all this.
Before we let you go, today marks 1 year since the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. His family gathered at his grave earlier today. I want to play a clip of one of the last interviews he gave for the CNN film documentary, Navalny.
My message for the situation when I'm killed is very simple: not give up.
Do me a favor, answer this one in Russian.
И здесь у меня просто очевидная вещь. Не сдавайтесь. Не надо, нельзя сдаваться. Если это произошло, это означает, что мы необыкновенно сильны в этот момент, раз они решили меня убить.
What is the state of opposition in Russia right now, Jill?
Well, they are completely excluded from any type of public participation in Russia at this point. Nobody can go on the streets to protest, although there were lines for the grave of Alexei Navalny in Moscow today, and that I think is significant. But the problem with the opposition right now is they don't really have a leader who is as strong and charismatic as Navalny was. And, you know, he is gone. His wife valiantly, you know, speaks around the world, but she's not Navalny. And so I think at this point, the opposition would really like to have somebody with that, the sheer political force and public influence that he had. But there really is no one at this point. So it's I would say a sad day on many levels for the opposition.
Jill, thank you so much for joining us.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work as we move forward into the future and not look back and sit in a rocking chair. Get the digestive enzyme complex. This will help to reduce the load on your pancreas. As you get older, your pancreas doesn't work as well, no matter what your age, no matter what your health, your pancreas does decline over time, all right? But you can reduce the load on your pancreas by watching what you eat, reducing your sugar content, and taking supplements that will help you digest your foods easier. Digestive enzyme complex breaks up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. So take this every day and reduce the load on your pancreas. If you are an athlete, either younger or older athlete, taking digestive enzyme complex is going to help you break up your pre-workout or your post-workout nutrition. And that way you're going to be fueling your body quicker and you're going to recover quicker. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the digestive enzyme complex, reduce the load on your pancreas, and break up your carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Taking a good probiotic is really important for your overall health. I have a veggie cap version and I have a powdered version. I prefer to take the powdered version because I take a lot of different powders. I take the lignans, and I take the collagen, and the boomer boost, and the barley, all right? So, but it's just easier for me, all right? For other people, it may be easier just to take the probiotic using the veggie cap. But either way, take a good probiotic, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. Get the probiotics, improve your gut biome, bring down inflammation. And by bringing down gut inflammation, you're improving your immune system, you're improving your mucosal layer and your inner lining of your gut. And when you do that, you're reducing leaky gut syndrome and you're reducing mutations in the crypt. So with good gut health, you're reducing the chances of forming polyps. Also, you're going to have better metabolism and you're going to have more energy because you're absorbing your nutrients better. You're going to have better health of your liver. You're also going to be able to sleep better. You're going to be able to concentrate better. You're reducing the chances of early onset of dementia. Good gut biome improves your skin and your hair and your nails. A lot physical manifestation of can happen if you have a poor gut biome, but you can improve the physical manifestation. You can improve your organ systems by having a good gut biome. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take these probiotics, use discount 5, and you get $5 off. Good health does start with the gut. A lot of people in the United States, because of the SAD diet, the standard American diet, the SAD diet is killing you because it's killing your gut. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. And lastly, omega-3. It's a supplement you should be taking every day to improve your total cholesterol. It brings down LDL levels and increases your HDL levels. So that means your total cholesterol is improving. And by bringing down the LDL levels, like I said, you're reducing the chances of it being oxidized and reducing plaque buildup. In addition, omega-3 brings down systemic inflammation and prevents your red blood cells from sticking too much. That means it's reducing overclotting. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take omega-3 every day. Use discount 5. It's a big secret. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All right, I want to go to Al Jazeera talking about the Ukraine war here.
With Russian people or without people, or with only rare earth minerals. Here he was partially paraphrasing Donald Trump, who had earlier said that he wanted $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals from Kiev as payment for US military aid to Ukraine, something Ukraine considers immoral against the backdrop of all the death, suffering, and destruction and displacement of the Ukrainian people there.
All right, well, let's take a closer look at what's happening on the ground in Ukraine. And the Institute for the Study of War estimates that Russia currently controls just less than 20% of Ukrainian territory. They have been making gains in several directions, notably near Donetsk. Russia's forces recently national economics and are now advancing towards the strategic hub of Pokrovsk. But Ukraine still holds ground in Russia's Kursk region, including the town of Sudzha. It controls about 500 square kilometers there, half of its initial gains when it launched a cross-border incursion in August. Charles Stratford has been speaking to Ukrainians in the capital, Kyiv, about their reaction to the US-Russian-led peace talks.
3 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It now occupies around 20% of this country. Of course, it's 10 years since Russia occupied Crimea. We've been trying to gauge the mood here in Kiev amongst the people about this new reality. Yes, everybody we've spoken to wants peace, but many of them don't want peace at any cost. And they certainly are very concerned about a peace that they believe is being dictated by the new man in the White House.
I have mixed feelings because I want peace to finally come, but I do not support peace at any cost. I'm very against potential loss of Ukrainian territories.
My attitude to this is that Europe will not go anywhere. It will wake up. They understand that Ukraine is fighting for them. And if Ukraine falls, then all of Europe will fall too.
Everything can be fixed, everything can be done, but war won't bring my son back. He was 30 years old when he was killed. I prayed for Trump. I really wanted him to be elected. He was elected, but my son is dead, and the war continues.
It's emotional responses like that that truly highlight the level of suffering being endured by millions of people across Ukraine, especially those who've lost friends and loved ones, and those who used to live in what are now the Russian-occupied territories. There is an underlying feeling of deep uncertainty here today as this country deals with this new reality, and as diplomatic efforts and leaders around the world struggle to deal with trying to find a peace plan to end this war. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera, Kyiv.
There are less than 2 weeks left until the end of the first phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. Palestinians have had some respite from Israel's relentless bombardment, but after 15 months of war destroyed 70% of Gaza's buildings, most families have nowhere to live. Israel is blocking the entry of bulldozers and heavy equipment needed to clear the rubble, to recover the thousands of bodies buried beneath the ruins of homes. Convoys of trucks carrying mobile homes and tents are also being held on the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing. Ibrahim Al-Khalili takes us to one neighborhood in Gaza City where people are forced into tents because of the destruction.
The humanitarian crisis in Gaza has been exacerbated by the significant delays in the delivery of tents and caravans intended to provide shelter to the hundreds of thousands of displaced Palestinians, despite a ceasefire agreement stipulating the entry of caravans, 6,000 caravans and 200,000 tents for displaced Palestinians. The progress has been hindered by the Israeli occupation forces, and these civilians who returned from southern part of the Gaza Strip to the north to find their homes completely destroyed are now living in the open. As you can see, the situation is getting much more dire in this makeshift place. As you can see, Tent City here has been set by these displaced Palestinians. Now they are living a new reality, displacement after the war ended. Now they displaced another time and they face harsh weather conditions. The weather adds an extra element of suffering to these displaced Palestinians in Gaza Strip. Brahim Hariri, Al Jazeera.
All right, I'm going to be shifting over to Fox News talking about the 2% target. Economist reveals how long it will take Trump to tame inflation.
Listen to what Trump's National Economic Council Director, Kevin Hassett, had to say about the administration's plan to bring down inflation.
Well, where does inflation come from, right? And so what we're doing now is we've got really a multifaceted plan to end inflation, but we're going to have a macroeconomic change that has supply side tax cuts, so we have more supply, and we're going to reduce government spending, both through what DOGE is doing and through congressional action. And so therefore, the macroeconomic forces that Jason Furman said were a tragedy are going to be reversed. That's a good thing. Then we're also going to have a lot of energy production, a lot of deregulation. And then finally, when needed, we're going to focus on the individual thing-by-thing pieces.
We need an economist, and we got one. His name is Stephen Morley, joins us this morning. Right, Stephen. Supply side tax cuts, energy and regulation reform, end of waste and fraud. Will that bring inflation down to the below 3%?
Well, you don't have to believe me. And the answer to that question is yes, but you just have to believe your own two eyes. And we know what happened when Trump was president in his first term. And you know that the inflation rate was actually below 2% on average the 4 years was when Trump was in office, because he did do those supply side pro-production policies including, by the way, drill baby drill, deregulating. All those things are good for keeping inflation restrained. Don't forget, the reason inflation went up to 9% under Biden was the massive spending spree. And we're already seeing with our own two eyes what Elon Musk is doing to try to end that.
But it will take a while to get inflation truly down back to between 2 and 3%. It's going to take a while.
Well, hold on. Let me tell you something. The inflation problem is very real. Trump has inherited a rising inflation rate from Biden. I mean, I almost fell off my chair when I saw Chucky Schumer blaming Trump for the big acceleration of inflation over the last 3 months. Trump wasn't even in the White House at that time. None of his policies have been implemented. But right now, if you look over the last 3 months, inflation is running at 4 to 5%. I don't understand why there's all this chatter about the Fed lowering rates when you have inflation that high. Now, I do think Trump's going to bring it down, but I agree with what you're saying. It's going to take 3 to 6 months to get inflation back to that 2% target.
But reciprocal tariffs, they're not going to help, are they?
Yeah.
They're inflationary, are they?
Well, it depends on whether you think Trump can pull this off. I happen to think he can. It's a bit of a risky strategy. But what Trump is saying to these other countries that have to trade with the United States, including China, including Europe, including Canada and Mexico, you lower your tariffs or we're going to raise ours. Now, it's a game of chicken. It's a sort of tit for tat strategy. But I think at the end of the day, and this is the probability, there's no assurance that this will happen. But I think at the end of the day, these countries will hem and haw, but they will be forced to bring their tariffs down. And that's good for everybody. And if that happens, then it causes a disinflation effect. Now, if this starts a trade war and you get, these tariffs ratcheting upward, then you have the opposite effect. But don't forget, every country has to trade with the United States. China can't win a tit-for-tat war with the United States, nor can Mexico, nor can Canada. So I'm hopeful this is going to lead to freer and fairer trade over the next 10 years. And stop calling the de minimis rule a loophole, as you guys were just doing. This is something that's been in effect for 100 years. These are packages that are worth just a few $100s. And did you know it costs the border control people $5 a piece to go through these packages? I'm in favor of the de minimis rule. I think it makes a lot of sense. We don't want every single package coming to the United States inspected by the border control people. It's just not feasible.
Stephen Moore, thanks for being with us. All good stuff. We'll see you again soon.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin B complex. This helps to boost up your metabolism. The first 4 B vitamins helps the health of the mitochondria during the electron transport chain. That boosts up your ATP levels. And B12 helps to protect your neurons. So a great way to improve your cellular metabolism and boost up your energy levels and protect your neurons, get the vitamin B complex. If you're 40 plus years of age or older, you need to take B vitamins on a regular basis to protect those neurons. Neural health is really important. And unfortunately, as your neurons start to weaken as you get older, if you're not doing a holistic approach to improve your neural health, you are going to have problems when you get older, for sure. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. Click the link, go to the store, get the vitamin B complex, use discount 5 to get $5 off any order. Good night formula, really important to take. Take it every day. Why? Because if you are in 3 cycles, if you get on average 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep a night, you're going to be well rested. So you're going to have more energy. When you have those 3 cycles of REM sleep, you're going to be detoxifying your central nervous system. If you are chronically sleep deprived, you're building up toxins. And over time, if you're chronically sleep deprived, you are going to get early onset dementia. Period. Full stop. All right? Pay attention. Plus, if you have good sleep and you have those 3 cycles of REM sleep on average and deep sleep, then you're reducing your cortisol levels. And by reducing your cortisol levels, your immune system is going to be better. You have less inflammation. And then you consolidate memory by being in these 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. So if you're chronically sleep deprived, you don't have memory consolidation. That means you are literally losing your memory. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take this supplement, Good Night Formula, every day. Improve your mental health and your neurons, your neural health. And by doing that, you're going to slow down the aging process, and your immune system is going to get better, and your brain activity is going to be better. You're going to have positive neuroplasticity, especially when you do all these holistic approaches that I've been talking about with proper diet and exercise, good blood flow. You know, good blood flow to the brain, it is adding nutrients for positive neuroplasticity. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14 and the Max 35. Why? It helps to boost up your immune system. Swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow. It's going to improve the epithelial lining, maintain a good mucosal barrier. It's going to improve the oral cavity and your oral pharynx. So when you have a better barrier, then that means that your innate immune system is better. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the Max 14 or the Max 35. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. If you're not feeling well because of the cold season, take a tablespoon or 2 a day until you start feeling better, and then go back to your maintenance of a teaspoon a day. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Max 14, Max 35. It's the first pillar of the core of a 4-pillar process for slowing down aging and improving your immune system. The first pillar is the Max 14s, Max 35. The second pillar is C60 to soak up free radicals. The third pillar is turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to bring down inflammation. And the fourth pillar is Boomer Boost, where you're boosting up your energy levels and your metabolism. When you do that core, you're really supercharging your health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take a look at the longevity boxes. Take a look at the anti-aging boxes. They're designed to be targeting certain systems, but not just that, at certain price points, and they have a built-in discount. If you buy individual products and you compare it to what's in an anti-aging or longevity box, the anti-aging and longevity box is cheaper. And you can use the discount 5 on top of it. I want to get these products in your hand so you get healthy in 2025. So get the longevity boxes, get the anti-aging boxes, get the individual items and supplements, and follow the way I'm stacking this stuff. Now let me talk about 2 other products before we do the next video. Myotrol. This helps with gene expression to build muscle. If you're 40 plus, you need to be taking Myotrol. If you're an athlete, young or old, you need to be taking Myotrol. In addition, Myotrol is going to help you build muscle through the expression of genes to build muscle. It'll help you to maintain muscle, and it helps to improve the health of the mitochondria. So you have the ATP to maintain that muscle and build that muscle. If you're an athlete, this is going to help you build that muscle for your sport. This stacks really well with Gladiator Barley. So if you're an athlete, take Myotrol and Gladiator Barley together, and that's going to really fuel your workout so you can get strength gains. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Myotrol. A lot of people know that when you get older, you start to atrophy, you start to lose muscle mass, and it behooves you to do some resistance training, take Myotrol, take the Gladiator Barley, and improve your musculature so you're not going to have some of the problems that may pop up in your geriatric years. And lastly, zeolite. Soak up those heavy metals, toxins, chemicals. This will bind to to the heavy metals, toxins, chemicals, and allow you to urinate it out in about 6 to 8 hours. Take it every day. Take 2 small drops, drink it with filtered water, and do that every day year round. Some people prefer to detox, do a detox protocol once or twice a year. For those people, take 5 small drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, and then do that every day until the bottle's done, and do that once or twice a year. But also filter your water and reduce your exposure to these chemicals, especially chemicals that are around your house, that are in your garage or in your basement or in your cupboard. Cleaning solutions, have them wrapped in such a way so it doesn't degas, so you're not breathing them in if you have to have them in your house. In addition, stay away from processed foods. Processed foods have a lot of chemicals that disrupt your endocrine system and disrupt your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the zeolite. Take this every day to detoxify your body. And by the way, you've been hearing in the news a lot about forever chemicals. Over time, you can get rid of forever chemicals with zeolite if you do this on a continuous basis. All right. Let's go to Al Jazeera. They're talking about Beijing right now.
And it supports these industries and that it needs a healthy private sector, especially given the suddenly slowing economic growth that China is facing and increasing external pressures, including extra tariffs from US President Donald Trump. This summit is also an about-face from Beijing's stance in 2020, when the government cracked down on the private sector and actually moved to curb the expansion of many fast-growing companies. Alibaba founder Jack Ma was himself silenced and sidelined for criticizing government red tape at the time. So his appearance at this summit in Beijing really does mark a comeback of sorts for Jack Ma, and is also a vindication from Beijing as to his importance as a role model and entrepreneur here in China. Ultimately, Xi Jinping has 2 goals when it comes to hosting this meeting. The first is to boost business confidence, and the second is to encourage Chinese companies to stay ahead, especially when it comes to its rivalry with the US in advanced technologies. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Pope Francis's health condition has changed to complex, according to the Vatican. The 88-year-old head of the Roman Catholic Church is spending his 4th day in Rome's Gemelli Hospital for a respiratory tract infection. He'd been suffering from bronchitis for more than a week before being admitted on Friday, following an audience with the Slovakian Prime Minister. The Vatican says he will require more time in hospital.
Now, I don't think that he's going to die right away, but he's an elderly patient. He's not healthy, and he's going to slowly spiral down and down and down. Normally what happens with these types of patients is that there is a steady decline. But what happens is if you zoom into the curve, over time and health. So health is the y-axis, time is the x-axis. The average line is just, going downward. But if you zoom in and look at the details, what usually happens with these patients is that they go down and then they get a little bit better, and then they come back down again, and they get a little bit better, and then they come back down again, and they oscillate. And the body is slowly shutting down. The body is slowly breaking apart. And this is the reason why I say it's important to follow the protocol, because what you're going to do is that your tissues are going to be healthier and younger when you get into your geriatric years. So when you do have a health crisis like what he has, you'll be able to fight the health crisis better. But, if you don't want to pay attention to me, it's up to you. Either way, you're going to get older. Now, do you want to get older and have vitality? Or do you want to get older and not have that vitality? It's up to you. All right. Now what I want to do is I want to switch to UN briefing, as today marks 500 days in war in Gaza. Let's just go to the UN here. They're making a statement.
He reiterated the importance of an inclusive Syrian-led political process supported by the international community. He also took part in a side event on women, peace, and security. He emphasized our call to all parties in Syria to uphold their international commitments, respect the rights and the dignity of women, and to ensure their full participation in shaping the country's future. This includes guaranteeing access to education, freedom of movement, political representation, and protection from violence and exploitation. And on the humanitarian front, today, our humanitarian colleagues completed a mission to Daria in rural Damascus to visit a farm that had been cleared of explosive ordnance with the support and funding from the Syrian Humanitarian Fund. With hostilities subsiding in parts of Syria, our humanitarian partners are scaling up mine action work in newly accessible areas, including former front lines where contamination is high. Since December, a total of 138 minefields and other areas contaminated with explosives have been identified in Idlib, in Aleppo, in Hama, Deir ez-Zor, and Latakia. During the same period, our partners have disposed of more than 1,400 unexploded ordnance items across Syria. Mine action partners continue to report casualties due to explosive ordnance, and that is happening, sadly, on an almost daily basis. Since December, over 430 deaths and injuries have been recorded. Nearly a third of them were children. Farmers and shepherds account for a significant portion of these casualties. Since January, more than 60 people have been killed and over 90 injured. These are farmers and shepherds while tending to their land or their grazing animals. Meanwhile, the flow rate continues through border crossings. Over the weekend, 40 trucks carrying nearly 1,000 metric tons of WFP food aid, enough for over 270,000 people, crossed from Turkey to Idlib in northwest Syria through the Bab el-Hawa border crossing. Partners have also expanded the imports of food and other assistance from Jordan to Syria since the start of 2025. And our Undersecretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, will begin a visit to Sudan, South Sudan, and Abyei starting tomorrow from the 18th to 24th of this month. In Port Sudan, discussions with high-level officials in the government will focus on strengthening cooperation and coordination to support peacekeeping efforts in the Abyei region. He will then head to South Sudan, where he'll meet in Juba with government officials and other key partners to discuss ongoing operations both in South Sudan and Abyei, where we have peacekeeping operations. Discussions will include our support for the peace process, as well as assessing the region's evolving security dynamics. In both South Sudan and Sudan, he will meet with representatives of the UN on the ground. Mr. Lacroix is scheduled to be in Abyei, where he will engage with the leadership of our peacekeeping mission and meet with representatives of the Abyei administrations, as well as traditional leaders.
We are continuing to listen in there to the UN daily briefing as we are anticipating a number of live events to get underway, including a group of bipartisan U.S. senators in Tel Aviv right now, as Secretary Rubio met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu yesterday. We're going to step away for another 2-minute break here on Live Now for Fox, continuing our live coverage after that.
I think we're going to pivot over to Al Jazeera here. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. Lignans, it's a powder. It brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals because it's an antioxidant. It helps with your endocrine system and your immune system. And it's a great stack for cardiovascular health and boosting up your immune system. And that stack is taking turmeric, that brings down inflammation and it soaks up free radicals because it's an antioxidant. And ashwagandha brings down cortisol levels and helps to control your blood glucose levels. When you stack these together, you're helping with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. And a very powerful stack is taking the lignans, ashwagandha, and the turmeric together. It's the third pillar of my core protocol. Bring down inflammation and boost up your immune system. And by bringing down that inflammation regularly, you're going to reduce the stress on your blood vessels. So you're reducing the chances of depositing plaque. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. Get the turmeric, the ashwagandha, and the lignans. Take it every day. And guess what? You're going to get healthy.
Stress, sharing of waters between upper and lower riparian states is about the most difficult matter to resolve. And just as there are passions among the people in Bangladesh on the Tista River, and indeed on other rivers which flow from India to Bangladesh, there are equally passions in India. And the government, both the central and the state governments, have to be aware and acknowledge these feelings, these popular feelings. So it would not.
All right, I'm going to pivot away from Al Jazeera because this is dealing with river flows in Bangladesh, and I'm not really concerned with that at the moment. Something's supposed to be. I'm not sure if Israel is going to be making a statement or the United States is making a statement. Something is going to be breaking here. I'm not sure what. Let me pivot to what Fox News posted about Doge about 8 hours ago.
In the meantime, for more on Doge and how Republicans here in Washington are trying to advance the Trump agenda, we want to bring in Tennessee Republican Tim Bitchute. Congressman, great to have you with us, my friend. Happy Sunday to you and yours. We're going to keep you busy till the Daytona 500 gets started a little bit later on today. You and I can both watch it on television on Fox. I do want to ask you, though, as we're hearing there from Dan Marie talk about this idea of really trying to hone in on where we can make some cuts. It would appear to me, and maybe you feel the same, there is plenty of fat on that steak that we can trim.
Yes, sir. I was just, a lot of it's just right there in front of us. We've got I think, a very dynamic director of HUD now, and he's found, I believe, almost $1.9 billion that was misplaced under the previous administration. I think you're going to see these so-called accounting errors throughout government because there has been no oversight whatsoever. And if you look in the classifieds today in Washington, D.C., if people are selling their homes, they're realizing. And the number one search out of the Washington, D.C. area, oddly enough, is criminal attorneys. So I think there's a lot going on. I think Doge is happening. The president is right. He is correct. The Democrats are chasing their tail right now because all they can do is attack Elon Musk and these young folks. And I always point to these guns behind me as they make fun of these 20, 21-year-old kids, so-called kids. My dad was 20 or 21 years old when he took those off of dead Japanese soldiers that he killed in combat to save this world, the greatest generation. So, and all these so-called kids that we tend to demean are actually heroes.
Yeah, no question about that. And listen, I don't know. There are a couple ways I want to go with this conversation, but before we get into some of the specifics about what we may learn about Doge moving forward, can you understand, Congressman, why there are so many Americans that are absolutely disgusted by some of the waste, fraud, and abuse? And I guess the second part of that question is, how did this happen? How did we end up where we are?
Well, that's an excellent question. And when you see people here in Tennessee paying 50% of their income to state, federal, and local taxes through through everything else, fees and everything else, and then they see us sending literally billions overseas to our enemies. I've uncovered $40 million going to the Taliban. A guy named Sean Ryan over in Middle Tennessee, former Navy SEAL, podcaster. He and another guy named Legend had brought this to my attention. And, you know, last term, I could not even get the Democrats to bring it up in the Senate. It passed unanimous in the House, not even a question, because they're going to have to admit they made a mistake. And they continuously made a mistake, and they did it on purpose, is the worst part about it. And this graph that you're seeing, and that's 100% what it is.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see a paper trail come back to Washington, D.C. And that's why I think a lot of people are nervous, and you'll see a lot of retirements because they are stealing from the American taxpayer, and now they've got their hand caught in the cookie jar, and all they can do is attack Elon Musk.
Well, thank you for calling it what it is. This is stealing, plain and simple. There has been a massive theft of the resources that the American people entrusted leaders in Congress to hang on to and to distribute on their behalf. And a lot of that money, frankly, was stolen. Let me share this real quick when I get your reaction before we wrap up. This is Democratic Senator Jack Reed. He claims that Doge cuts are more or less being used to bail out the president's tax policies. Listen to this. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
They just are looking for money for one reason, tax cut. They want to fund a huge tax cut for the wealthiest Americans, and they will disparage all other Americans. They don't care because they're going to take the money and run.
He says they're going to take the money and run, but I think most taxpayers feel like, listen, if I can get some of my tax money back, that's a pretty good idea. What say you?
It's a great idea. And this is just a talking point from the Democrat National Committee to attack capitalists and capitalism. A friend of mine, a guy here in Knoxville, Big Jim Haslam, billionaire, super generous guy, good guy. He tells me all the time, he said, Jimmy, don't be afraid of capitalism. And he is exactly right. Because that's it, capitalism, and I'm a Christian, I try to be one anyway. But outside of Christianity, capitalism has taken more people out of despair in this country. And, you know, our State Department, although they've been promoting drag shows and LGBTQ agenda all over the world with your tax dollar, they should have been promoting the two greatest things this country does, democracy and capitalism. Those are the two things we ought to be promoting, and that's what they're afraid of. And the Democrats, again, the gravy train has been running on biscuit wheels too long, and it's running off the tracks. That gravy spigot is being turned off right now. And if you're from up north, ask a Southern person what the gravy train and biscuits are for.
Well, as the child of Southern parents, I know. Tim, thank you so much, Congressman. We appreciate your time. Enjoy the Daytona 500. I hope you get a chance to watch it today with you and yours. Be well, my friend.
Everyone starts here.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Do this stack, and it's going to improve your cardiovascular health and your bone health. Vitamin D3 helps to soak up, helps to absorb calcium. It's a gene expression cofactor, so it helps to express genes in your cells. It helps to get rid of cells that need to go into apoptosis. And it stacks really well with K2 to absorb that calcium. All right. But if you're doing resistance training and you're taking the D3 and the K2, this is the MK7 molecule. You know, when you do that and you're taking calcium, I take it through milk, but you know, some people take a calcium supplement. And you're doing that resistance training, you're sending a signal there to actually deposit more bone. That means your bone density is going to increase over time. So this is a great stack to help with bone health. But you have to do resistance training too. It's very important. In addition, doing this stack and taking higher doses of D3, and I'll do a video about this in another time, there's a protocol to actually reverse osteoarthritis. And I've done this. I had osteoarthritis because I used to do triathlons. And I did this protocol that I learned from Dr. Group about. And after 7 months into it, I reduced the osteoarthritis. So there is a protocol to do it. It can be done, but you have to be diligent. And that first couple months is painful, but then the pain goes away and then you start feeling better. And then over time, the arthritis starts to go away. And for me, it took about 7 months. So But I'll talk about the product. It's taking higher doses of D3 to do it though, and doing light resistance training on the joint that has the osteoarthritis. But the point here is that by taking D3 regularly and taking K2 together with calcium, all right, and doing the resistance training, you're going to build bone density. And over time, you're going to get, your bones are going to get healthier and it won't be as brittle when you get older. It's really important because there's lots of people that are elderly that break their hip and about literally 2 to 3 weeks later, they're dead. That's not an exaggeration. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the D3 and the K2 and help with your bone density. This will also help with your cardiovascular health because it's going to prevent depositing of calcium around plaque buildup. A lot of times when plaque forms, there's also calcium deposits that take place around that plaque. Well, you slowly can pull that out and reduce the chances of calcium being deposited. So taking this is also dual purpose, helps with your bone density and your cardiovascular health. And then to add to the cardiovascular stack, nattokinase helps to break up clots because it's fibrinolytic, and it helps with your total cholesterol. It brings down LDL and increases your HDL levels. When you bring down LDL levels, you're reducing the chances of oxidized LDL, and oxidized LDL is the beginnings of forming the plaque. So you want to reduce that. And by taking this stack, you're reducing the chances of building up plaque. And over time, when you bring down inflammation and soak up those free radicals too, with this stack, you can actually reduce plaque, not just reduce additional plaque. So if you have a 50% blocked artery, over time, in about a year, by taking my cardiovascular stack, that's longevity cardiovascular health box, you can actually reduce the plaque buildup. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, take this stack, improve your cardiovascular health, take this stack and improve your bone health. Take this stack together and you do both, cardiovascular and bone health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure that you use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Okay. With that said, I want to pivot over to Sky News. They're talking about Ukraine.
Decide to meet with their Russian counterparts. European leaders are most certainly involved in this process. They had a whole week of meeting with American officials in Munich last week. So did President Zelensky. So now we have a meeting with the Russians. Zelensky's been in lots of meetings with Trump officials without Russian officials there. So I don't understand what the problem is here. I think it is good for global security when American and Russian leaders meet. Don't you agree?
Yeah, well, look, you said you didn't know what was true. I mean, there are European leaders sort of scrambling around in Paris. You have Marco Rubio in Saudi Arabia. You have Zelensky saying, well, I'm not in any of these. My point was, maybe it would be better to have a far more coordinated process. Otherwise, the fear in Europe is that Donald Trump's about to do a deal on Ukraine that would leave Putin claiming victory and that will reward the aggressor. That's the fear in Europe and in Ukraine.
I don't know what Zelensky means when he says he's not involved in any of these. U.S. officials have constantly met with Zelensky. Now it is the turn of Russian officials to meet with Trump officials. That's a good way of doing things. There will be future meetings when Russian and Ukrainian American officials will be at the table at the same time. I think what's going on with the Europeans is what we might call FOMO, fear of missing out. They reject the fact that they are not included. They think they want to be relevant in all these meetings. They're annoyed that they are not the center of attention. That is not what's going on here. And finally, when you have too many people participating in talks like this, you don't get a lot done.
Right. I mean, the Europeans are clear that they.
I totally agree with him. Zelensky is afraid of missing out. That's for sure. And he's used to getting whatever he wants through the Biden administration. It's time to talk to one party and then go and talk to the other party and then get the meeting of the minds and close out this whole war. This war has gone on for too long, and we have funded way too much of this.
Understand the concern of European officials that a big part of Ukraine shouldn't be handed over to the Russians, and I don't think the U.S. wants to do that either. What Donald Trump wants to do is to get an immediate ceasefire to stop the fighting and then proceed with negotiations on a final settlement. The U.S. hasn't conceded anything to Putin. And I think that that's something that should be kept in mind. And for all these complaints by European leaders, the fact is that they don't trust Donald Trump, but they don't have their own plan. Europe has had years to hold meetings like this with the Ukrainians, with the Russians. Where's their peace plan? What did they do with Joe Biden to end the fight? Nothing.
You say that Trump hasn't conceded anything. Pete Hegseth has already said that no NATO membership, no pre-2014 borders, no US peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. I mean, that is conceding stuff. How can Ukraine rely on Trump to do a deal that satisfies them?
Well, I understand that Hegseth rolled back some of those points, but look, realistically, it's going to be very difficult to give Crimea back to Ukraine, which would be returning to the pre-2014 borders. And concerning NATO membership, we can pretend there's a way to get Ukraine into NATO, but realistically, since that would take a unanimous vote of NATO members, which is not going to happen, this is not something that's available to be negotiated. So really, Hegseth was simply expressing a reality. He wasn't conceding anything.
But isn't the problem that NATO membership, for instance, is effectively being conceded? And just simply by having the meeting, Fred, isn't Donald Trump lifting the diplomatic isolation of Vladimir Putin, the pariah status of Vladimir Putin? With one phone call, one meeting, he's doing that.
Well, the policy of Joe Biden was to isolate Putin as much as possible, to demonize him, to liken him to Hamas, to say he's a war criminal. And the last time Biden spoke to Putin was in February 2022. And I have to tell you that when the leaders of the two nations with the greatest nuclear arsenals on earth do not talk, it makes the world much less safe. Russian and American leaders spoke in the depths of the Cold War. And I think this is one of the best things that Donald Trump is doing. He is establishing dialogue with the Russians. He wants to talk to Chinese President Xi. He's even willing to talk to Iranian leaders. That's what statesmen do. It's not that they are agreeing with the positions of their adversaries. It's because they believe dialogue is important for world peace.
Fred Flight, appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Good to be here.
It's quite time now for the sport with Gail.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Meanwhile, clubs themselves are also conscious of how important relationships with parents are.
Hopefully today sets the scene a little bit. First task, guys, just to see what your opinion is. If you scan that QR code.
38-year-old won 2 gold
All right,
medals.
I'm going to pivot to France 24 here. Looks like someone's retiring from the Tour de France.
Titles, also in track cycling. The Welshman's biggest triumph was winning cycling's greatest race, the Tour de France. Thomas finished in the yellow jersey in 2018. He had started the race to help his teammate Chris Froome win another title, but Froome struggled while Thomas won back-to-back mountain stages, becoming the first British rider to win the stage at the Alpe d'Huez. Thomas came third in last year's Giro d'Italia. Despite continuing to be in good form, he said that he feels that now is the time to leave the sport on a high. Thomas will be tackling the Tour de France one last time this summer in a supporting role for his team Ineos. Finally, let's end with some tennis. Teenager João Fonseca has underlined why he is one of the sport's most promising stars, as he won his first ATP Tour title at just 18 years old. The Brazilian beat Francisco Cerundolo 6-4, 7-6 to win the Argentina Open. He came back from an early breakdown in the first set to take the lead. The teenager was then ahead in the second before his more experienced opponent broke back twice. But the Brazilian took total control in the tiebreak. Fonseca, at the time ranked 99th in the world, was ranked 79 places below Cerundolo. Is the fourth youngest man to win the ATP title in the last 25 years, and is now part of an exclusive club along the likes of Rafael Nadal and Carlos Alcaraz. Fonseca established himself as an exciting talent in the sport after winning the next-gen ATP finals at the end of last year. He then began the year by stunning Andrew Rublev in the first round of the Australian Open last month. Let's take a listen to him.
All right, I'm going to pivot to deep dive. This is now, remember, my show is about showing both sides. I play a lot of Al Jazeera, and they are very anti-Israeli. All right, I play a lot of it. All right, I'm going to go to deep dive. This isn't TV7 Israel channel. But before I do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the resveratrol. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. It's very important. It helps the health of your mitochondria to boost up ATP levels. It will help you to get rid of cells to go into apoptosis. If you have cells that stop dividing, they just sit there and start collecting garbage, and they don't perform as well. Especially when you get older, they start to accumulate undigested proteins. Usually when your cells start produce proteins, it has a mechanism to break up those proteins and recycle them. But when you have cells that get older, you have proteins that can't be broken apart. They just sit there, all right, and they just start to accumulate, and toxins start to accumulate, lipofuscin and all this stuff, and therefore the cells don't perform as well. And when you get older, you'll have more and more of these cells in your tissue, and therefore the tissue in the organ doesn't perform as well. You want to get rid of those. Resveratrol helps with that. All right. In addition, resveratrol is an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It's synergistic with C60, and synergistic with NAD+ and ubiquinol. So please take resveratrol and take it with something else like ubiquinol or NAD+ or C60. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take resveratrol. I've been taking it for decades. It's very important, and you get the most benefit from resveratrol when you stack it with those other items that I'm talking about. And those other items are this: ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can buy. Most people that take CoQ10, they're not getting the most bioavailable version. This is the most bioavailable version. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the ubiquinol. It's an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It's going to help with the health of the mitochondria, so it's going to boost up your ATP, and it is neuroprotective. It helps to protect your neurons and the health of your neurons. You need that if you're 40 years or older. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the ubiquinol. And this stacks really well with C60 and resveratrol. NAD+ boosts up energy levels, helps to heal your mitochondrial DNA and your cellular DNA. When we get older, we accumulate damage to our DNA, and it's hard for our body to repair it. NAD+ helps to repair that damage. In addition, NAD+ also helps to protect your neurons and to improve the health of your neurons. It stacks well with ubiquinol, resveratrol, and C60. Please take NAD+ every day. Use discount 5 on any order, and you get $5 off. And a great stack is this right here: resveratrol, NAD+, and ubiquinol. This is a great stack for your neural health and soak up free radicals and slow down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get these supplements and stack it this way. And it's a great way to improve the health of your neurons and to have the energy levels that you need, especially when you get older. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video and all my videos. All right, let's go to deep dive. Now, let me, another caveat here. On this show, I play both sides. You listen to podcasters, most podcasts, not all, most podcasters will only play one side of the story. Most podcasters, if they hate Israel, they'll only play anti-Israeli type perspective. If they love Israel, they'll only play, only positive news about Israel. All right. I look at all these different world events with wide eyes. All right. I have my own opinion, but I will show both sides. All right. And everyone knows my opinion about this. Negative Esau needs to die, period. So, and there's going to be this great alignment between Jacob, positive Esau, and Ishmael, which we're seeing play out on a daily basis on the news. But I'm going to play this. I haven't seen the video, and I'll comment.
Welcome. This is Deep Dive featuring Hudson Institute. And from here in Jerusalem, I'm more than glad to introduce my panelists for today here in Body and Form, no other than Dr. Mike Duran, a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute, where he's also the director of the Center for Peace and Security in the Middle East, formerly a senior director at the White House for North Africa and the Middle East. It's always a pleasure to have you with us here, Mike.
Great to be here. Thank you, Jonathan.
Well, I'd like to immediately dive into the fact that today marks day 500 since the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates launched their heinous crimes against Israel on October 7th of 2023. Looking at those horrendous events, what comes to mind?
What's mainly on my mind is where do we go next? We now have the Trump administration in place. Of course, Donald Trump doesn't have all of his officers in place, but he's in place, and he's moving in a new direction. And I'm watching carefully to try to understand exactly what that direction is. We had the trip to Washington of Prime Minister Netanyahu and his team. It looked to me that they primarily discussed Iran and Gaza. I have some other things on my mind, namely Syria. It looked to me, and I say all this hesitantly because I'm watching to see what the signs are. It looked to me like President Trump signaled that he wants a negotiation with Iran and that he's in no rush to attack the Iranian nuclear program. I think that my assumption is that that Prime Minister Netanyahu had that as on the top of this list. And then President Trump unveiled his plan for Gaza, which I think was probably a big surprise to the Israelis. So they're trying to figure out what does the Gaza plan mean for them. Those are, I think, the big things. I think that if you look at it from Jerusalem's point of view, the Israelis used to say that they have three concerns: Iran, and Iran. Now I think they have three concerns: they're Iran, Gaza, and Syria. There's a kind of a question mark over every one of those.
With Syria, of course, the extension also being Lebanon, and the ramifications for Jordan, and the implications, of course, for Iraq. Everything is connected.
And of course, Turkey is
part
of that as well.
So let's start actually with the main topic, not the most dangerous topic, namely Iran, but rather the Gaza Strip. President Trump subsequently came out and provided an ultimatum saying Saturday noon, either Hamas releases all of the hostages, not in various installments of small threes or twos of hostages being released every Saturday, but all of them in one bulk, or else the gates of hell will break loose in the Middle East. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's government, the Security Cabinet, unanimously adopted, according to him, the position of President Trump, and yet the moment arrived and business as usual.
Right.
What happened?
Yeah, I can only speculate, but what I think Prime Minister Netanyahu probably made the calculation that if he goes to war or reopens major conflict with Hamas, there's no guarantee that that's going to force Hamas to give up all of the hostages, and that what he has a reasonable hope of getting is the hostages that Hamas promised to deliver in this phase of the agreement. And the agreement has 3 phases, and he's got about 5 more hostages to have released under this phase. And I think he probably calculated that he could get those, and that's very important to him because he's under domestic political pressure to bring as many hostages home as possible.
Well, many of them, not many, those hostages were taken captive by this Islamist terror group under his watch. So naturally, he's also very eager to see them returned as speedily as possible, as healthy as possible. Unfortunately, the majority are not alive. But within that calculus, I do wonder, and of course there are a lot of question marks that we can't really answer at this point, but how does Trump look at this from his perspective, saying, I established an ultimatum, I gave Israel an out, nevertheless, in the last moment, they did decide to take that out. Does this reflect on Trump?
I don't think so. I think if we're thinking about it in terms of his own domestic political constituency, I think that he is presenting the profile that he wants to present to them, and that Israeli calculations or the Israeli decisions don't reflect on that in any way.
Very interesting indeed. Well, yesterday on Sunday morning, we saw some 1,800 munitions of heavy load explosives arriving following the Italian strike, as you wrote in your known article.
The embargo.
The embargo by the Biden administration. It's officially done with. Is Israel gaining now the qualitative military edge that it requires in order to confront all the various adversaries, including the head of the octopus, namely the Islamic Republic of Iran, in the event that this erupts?
I think the end of the embargo, which was never officially announced by the Biden administration, it strengthens Israel's hand, but I don't think it gives it the decisive edge that it needs, because what the Iranians developed over the Israelis was this ability to tax their air defense systems. What the Iranians can do is unleash very large numbers of missiles against Israel all at once. And in order to defend against that, Israel needs the help of the United States. And that I think is the key pressure that the Iranians put on the Israelis well, actually, there are 2 pressure points. One was the defense industrial capability of the Israelis. The Israelis don't have enough interceptors that they can make on their own to foil a massive Iranian barrage. They need the help of the Americans, and they also need the entire system, the detection system that they get through CENTCOM. And the second thing that the Iranians developed was basically this political pressure by the Americans on the Israelis to hold back. And I don't know that the political pressure has disappeared. It's not the same. It's not the same at all as it was under Biden.
Well, the Iranians have less sway on the Republicans than they do on the Democrats.
Except the Iranians are launching a charm offensive right now, and they're telling Donald Trump that he can solve they're signaling that there's a possibility of solving the nuclear threat without another war. And so that creates political pressure on the Israelis to hold back for the moment.
With the Iranians at their weakest point, since I remember at least, are they going to succumb to American demands under the current administration, or will it be yet another drag of the feet, so to speak, in a prolonged negotiated process that ultimately may result in an outcome an outcome that we don't necessarily want to see?
So I assume that the Iranians will do what they have always done in the past with the United States, and that's negotiate in order to buy time, not in order to get to an agreement that will have a lasting understanding between Washington and Tehran. I don't think they believe in such a thing. They might come to some kind of agreement, like a JCPOA 2.0. It's possible to imagine that, but the goal from the Iranian point of view is to buy time in order to build up their defenses and to build up their stockpiles of ballistic missiles again.
Indeed. Well, we did see a couple of shipments of necessary chemicals for the purpose of reinvigorating their ballistic missiles program coming into Iran to the Bandar Abbas port from China, which is indicative, of course, of their intentions. But beyond that, the Iranians are very active when we're talking about the various proxies under their sway in order to try and rehabilitate those who've been destroyed, going from the Islamist Hamas to the meetings that the RGC just held last week with the officers from the fallen Assad regime that withdrew into Iraq and of course, have united themselves with Hashd al-Shaabi, or the Popular Mobilization Forces, that are very strong still in Iraq. But within all that, and this is quite apparent, they're not talking about Gaza other than their regular rhetoric. They are meeting with the leadership of Hamas, but they haven't really addressed President Trump's plan for the Gaza Strip. They're taking a backseat to the Arab world, looking at them actually doing their bidding when we're talking about the United States vis-a-vis Israel and the Gaza Strip. How do you see that?
Yeah, there's definitely a major Israeli achievement since October 7th is the weakening of the Iranians. And they were leading after October 7th the global ceasefire movement, and they used all of their proxies in a coordinated military action against Israel, creating this ring of fire around Israel, saying that when there's a ceasefire in Gaza, one that will leave Hamas in place, then Israel will no longer be attacked by Hezbollah from Lebanon. International shipping won't be attacked by the Houthis, and so on. And they were, of course, supported by the rest of the global ceasefire movement, including some Europeans, even people on American universities, and so on. And they said there's no way they will ever stop attacking Israel until there is what they want in Gaza. Now they are pulling back, as you say, taking a backseat, because their number one concern is that they are naked before an Israeli attack. They don't have the air defenses to protect them. So yes, they are looking to build up their arsenal of ballistic missiles, but they can't get air defenses. There are only two powers who could possibly give them air defenses. One is Russia, which doesn't seem to be doing it because it's taxed in Ukraine, and Vladimir Putin sees Donald Trump moving toward him on Ukraine. I mean, in comparison to where Biden was, and Putin doesn't want to give Trump any reason not to put pressure on Zelensky. So he's not going to rush to rebuild the Iranian defenses.
That's a great point.
The Chinese are hesitant, I think, to get involved directly.
That's a great point on the alignment of Russia with Iran. Now, from a metaphysical point of view, and I've mentioned this on other videos, the question is, who represents the new Rome? Now, in biblical texts, it's dealing with the color red. Now, some scholars are saying, well, the United States is the new Rome. And in many ways, we have Roman-esque tendencies, all right? But our flag is not predominantly red, all right? It's red, white, and blue, right? There's a lot of white and a lot of blue in it, right? So red is not the dominant color. But red is a dominant color for this whole Russia thing, right? Communism. Now, what is interesting, and Don said this on an X Space, what if it's not Russia but China? Now, in the biblical text, it talks about the north, that Rome is coming from the north, and it's red. All right, so the scholars are thinking it's Russia. The biblical scholars are thinking it's Russia. But what if there is polar shift, where the poles shift 90 degrees? Well, if the poles shift 90 degrees, then you may actually have China as the new Rome. Now, that doesn't go in line with biblical scholars' interpretation of the northern red Rome that aligns with Esau for Mog and my Mog, apocalyptic event, right? The big event before the Messianic age. So, who knows? I mean, I can see that there is a case to be made that perhaps the new Rome is China, but it seems more in line with something that would be a typically Western power. And the United States doesn't really fill the bill for that completely. It partially does. So we'll see what happens. We don't know for sure. But it's interesting that how he brings up how Russia has aligned themselves with Iran. Now, just looking at game theory here, independent of metaphysics, is pretty, Putin is going to align with Trump and not with Iran. So having a little bit more of an appeasement with the negotiations that are a little bit more biased to Putin may actually play well with the further escalation in the Middle East, where the United States, Israel, and other allied forces are going to attack Iran without Russia backing Iran. So this is actually a good negotiating strategy that Trump's doing, if that is what he's doing. So just keep that in mind. I mean, that relationship between Russia and Iran over decades doesn't seem to have the same support during the Trump years. So before we continue with Deep Dive, and did you notice with Deep Dive that it's calm and it's not this like over the top rhetoric that's on many of the shows on Al Jazeera, not all the shows, but many of the shows on Al Jazeera. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver gel. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser. Have some at work, have some at home. It's really important to have because you never know when you need it. It's a skincare, so you can apply it on your skin every day and exfoliate, and your skin's going to be healthier. You can put it on a cut, a minor burn, an abrasion. That'll help to heal quicker. If someone's sick around you, guess what? Put it on your hands, put it around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears, around your mouth. Lightly coat your nostrils. Stays active for 5.5 hours. Another trick for ones that don't know, if you're not feeling well and you have a runny nose, put the structural nanosilver gel lightly, a little bit more than lightly coat, but not too much, in your nostrils, and it's going to help slow down that nasal drip. And it also kind of brings down that kind of inflamedness in your nose. Another thing that you can do is it can be used as an aftershave. Guys, after you shave your face, put the gel on your face and it's going to soothe it. Females, you shaving your legs, put it on your legs, and it's great to soothe your legs and help to heal razor burn. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This is a very high quality product and it's dual purpose. The structural nanosilver is a dual purpose. You should have it at home all the time because you can use it for so many things. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off. Just be prepared because you will need it. Someone in your house is going to need it. So it's better to have it when you need it. And lastly, I've added NAC to my stack. Why? Many of these anti-aging gurus and ones that have modified their stacks and experimented with their stacks for their health protocol have had good results with NAC. So I've added it to my stack and I'm seeing the same results. And what it does is it boosts up glutathione levels, it soaks up free radicals. It also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney, especially if you take acetaminophen. And it helps to calm down your nervous system. It reduces anxiety. That's really important because if you have high anxiety or chronic anxiety, that's not good for you. But your cortisol levels are higher, and that's immunosuppressive. So if you want to improve your immune system, you need to calm down your body, get out of sympathetic and go into parasympathetic mode and calm your body. So take NAC, calm your body, reduce anxiety. NAC also helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney, really important. And it boosts up your glutathione levels so you can soak up free radicals. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the NAC.
Their modus operandi in the past has been to be the enabler of the Russian and Iranian military machines through things like you're saying, providing chemicals, providing the Russians with machines to build weapons, but not the actual weapons. They haven't engaged in that. So Iran has to create its own defenses, and the Israelis already have an answer to all of those. So this is their big dilemma. That's why they have to buy time.
Interesting. Well, let's actually one more point on this. When we looked this past Saturday at the 3 hostages being released, there was a writing on the wall that referenced President Trump's plan, in which it said, we will not be, or we won't leave Gaza or get displaced elsewhere other than Jerusalem. And then in basically a reference where in Arabic it's more understood, where they say, we won't stop until we conquer Jerusalem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that is taken seriously by the United States, by European actors for that matter, and by Israel, considering the fact that the only ones who understand the necessity to eradicate Hamas, which is not an easy task to do since it is a social movement, requires a more vigorous response than what we've seen today.
I don't know that that anyone in Europe is thinking that way. I don't think anyone in the American national security establishment is thinking that way. Only the Israelis, and not all of the Israelis for that matter. And when I say all of the Israelis, I'm talking about all of the Israelis in the security establishment. They're not all thinking about eradicating. So Donald Trump's plan for Gaza, it opens the possibility of changing the reality on the ground. But there is not yet, it's really an idea rather than a plan. We don't have in place all of the different actors who can implement it, including the Israelis. As long as the Israeli government is focused on completing at least this first stage of the hostage agreement, it's not putting in place the mechanisms, military and otherwise, to implement, to put flesh on the bones of Trump's idea.
Very interesting indeed. Well, let's keep it on Iran, but nonetheless with focus on the prospects of an Israeli strike, or potentially even an American-Israeli strike. You said you're not seeing that necessarily. There's a diplomatic process that Trump really aspires to. Nevertheless, if they're going to drag their feet long enough, this calculus may change.
If the Iranians drag their feet long enough, then the American calculus may change. Absolutely. And Trump said that an Iranian nuclear weapon is unacceptable. So the United States will not allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. He is, however, clearly willing to negotiate with the Iranians about ending their program. Exactly what he's going to define as proof that they've ended their program, and whether they're going to sit down with him on terms that are acceptable to him. We don't know answers to any of that yet. We have to wait and see what happens. But clearly, he has prioritized. I think clearly, I have to be careful with my language. I think it's pretty clear that he has prioritized negotiations ahead of the use of any military force. So, from an Israeli point of view, this is leaving money on the table because there's an opportunity right now to destroy Iran's nuclear program with very low risk. I think
about the diminished cost.
Yes, a year ago, it would have seemed like there would be a very high cost. Now we've seen Iran through everything that it has at Israel, and it wasn't enough to really harm Israel in any way. Iran cannot really harm the United States in any way. So there's no reason why, this is from the Israeli point of view, there's no reason why Israel and the United States have to tolerate all of this aggressive action by Iran and its proxies all around the Middle East. But Donald Trump is not seeing it that way. At least the early indications are that he's not seeing it that way.
Right. I do see some similarities to the previous Trump administration when he was the 45th, where he scrapped the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, despite not being comprehensive at all. But nonetheless, after scrapping it, he said, I'm looking forward to negotiate a new deal, a longer one, a stronger one, a more substantive agreement, right, without a termination dates, with the sunset clause and such. The Iranians rejected it outright. Even the Europeans rejected it outright, with President Obama coming out and saying, well, of course our deal was not perfect, but better a bad deal than no deal at all. Well,
right.
I don't.
And then the left and the Europeans, maybe I repeat myself, they said that all of the difficulties that ensued from scrapping the deal were the result of scrapping it.
Right, rather than them having a bad deal, and Iran being a bad actor, which is the fundamental basics to everything.
Right.
But
yes, I agree with you. There's real continuity there, and President Trump looks at the world economically. I mean, this should be obvious to us now, but you see it in Gaza. I mean, he talks about the economic potential of Gaza, of developing Gaza, of changing the reality through mainly economic activity. The same is true with Iran. He sees the major pressure on Iran to be economic. He's reinstated maximum pressure, and he wants to try to create a new reality with Iran on the basis of economic pressure. The economics always takes precedence in President Trump's mind before military action.
Well, the previous time, the maximum pressure campaign brought Iran to their knees in just 1 year of enforcement. Now President Trump has 4 years. I don't think the regime will survive something like this unless they play ball, but we'll have to wait and see. It has to be a whole of government approach. Let's move to the next topic. Tomorrow is the date in which Israel is expected to disengage from Lebanon. What do you?
Sorry, I'm responding to your line in my mind. There are three things that I never predict in the Middle East. I never predict the demise of Benjamin Netanyahu. I never predict the demise of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and I never predict the demise of the Iranian regime. We have to assume that these things are going to be with us.
That's why I said, and if I may quote myself, I'm not sure they will survive. I didn't say anything definitive, but I agree. I agree. We need to wait and see. They are very well organized in order to try and survive. That is their top priority. Going back to Lebanon, tomorrow is the date of the disengagement of IDF forces based on the extension of the agreement that was arranged by the United States, of course, with Israel, with the state of Lebanon, and with the French. Hezbollah is seemingly and clearly not the same power it used to be prior to the April, the campaign of the beeper attacks and the walkie-talkie attacks, and then the robust strikes that the IDF has conducted on all of its facilities, pretty much within a time span of 1 week to 2 weeks, not more than that. But what can you identify as being the most crucial point to focus on within this conflict?
The crucial point to focus on is that the Lebanese armed forces are not going to secure the south. They're simply not going to do it, right, which is what the agreement calls for. And what Hezbollah, in using a variety of tactics that we're all familiar with, is going to try to re-insinuate itself back into the life of southern Lebanon, and the Israelis are simply going to strike wherever they see Hezbollah coming together in any kind of position of strength. The Israelis are going to strike it. They're going to do that in Lebanon. They're going to do it in Syria as well.
We're running out of time. You noted the 3 points that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke together on and focused on. We covered the Iranian angle. We covered the Gazan angle. Syria.
It looks to me like they didn't talk much about Syria. I think Syria is there isn't a clear American policy on Syria right now, as far as I can tell.
Very interesting.
Unfortunately, this is always the case with Syria. It's always an afterthought in American policy. This has nothing to do with the Trump administration. This is when I was in the White House, 2005 to 7. We never had a Syria policy. We had a Syria director, the officer in the White House responsible for Syria, under me. And when he left, in the White House, you borrow people from the other agencies, and he had to go back to his home agency. And we talked about who should replace him, and we said, "How about the photocopy machine?" Because we continued to send the same memo up to the president for a decision. Never got an answer.
Amazing. Well, you did mention a couple of weeks ago that the state of Syria is not necessarily important, but the land of Syria is of crucial strategic importance. Where do we converge here?
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't say this. If I said that the state of Israel and the state of Syria is not important, I exaggerated. And of course, it's important, but the United States has no 4-star economic asset in Syria. It has no history of serious engagement with Syria, and yet for everyone else in the region, this is the place where the regional order is being negotiated. That's why we have some 5 or 6 different militaries on the ground well, I guess the Russians are gone now, and the Iranians are around. So what are we left with? The Americans, the Turks, and the Israelis. There's not even much of a Syrian army anymore either. But we had all those militaries there because this is where the regional order is being negotiated.
Oh, the Sham, right? Yeah. All historic empires understood to conquer the Levant, including also Jerusalem, you need to control Damascus first. But we have a couple seconds left and not enough time to dive deeper into the various intricacies of the Syrian file. Nonetheless, in 2 words, the situation is not fluid, and it seems like there are increasing tensions within Syria, not necessarily from the international community towards Syria. Do you see the current HTS regime successfully consolidate power in Damascus, absent support from Sweda, from Hasaka, and the other regions that are so crucial?
I think it depends on the negotiations that go on between the United States and the Turks. Syria is under pressure from Israel from the south and from the Turks from the north. And if the United States steps in and can create a balance between Israel and Turkey, and can assure the Turks that their interests will be their vital interests will be respected in Syria, and it can assure the Israelis of that as well, then a space will be created for a stable Syrian government. But that has to be negotiated, and the only power in the world that can conduct that negotiation is the United States.
And that we agree upon, absolutely. Well, this is all the time that we have for today. Dr. Mike Duran, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition of Deep Dive featuring Hudson Institute from here in Jerusalem, wishing you a good day.
All right. Let's go to France 24 about the death of NATO.
Go about it. So the UK is in a very difficult position when it comes to the US, because on the one hand, the US is threatening the UK with steel tariffs and other tariffs. The UK, which has gone alone, has very little negotiating power on any kind of foreign trade issues with the United States. So Keir Starmer does not want to irritate Donald Trump. And Keir Starmer also has said he would like to see himself as a bridge between the EU and the United States on these defense issues. So I think that he's doing everything he can to try and bring Donald Trump on board with the European view of what needs to be done regarding Ukraine without alienating the United States, because the United Kingdom really needs the United States right now. And to the extent that the UK said they would not even retaliate if tariffs are put on the UK. So Keir Starmer will try to continue to I think it's a very admirable thing to want to try and do. Whether he will be successful or not is a completely different question. He seems to think he can influence Donald Trump to see things through European eyes. Personally, I don't think he's going to be successful, but you know.
So what else should he have done?
Well, he could have been very firm. He could have called Donald Trump out and said, listen, what you're doing is espousing Putin's worldview. But I cannot imagine a British Prime Minister going that far at this point, absolutely, considering all the other issues that the United Kingdom is facing. I can't see that.
Rio Terrace, if the U.S. cuts a deal directly with Russia and goes the whole way here, would Estonia be threatened? Would Putin have designs for an attack on Estonia?
Well, first of all, I don't see how it can happen without Ukraine and Europe. So there is no deal about Europe without Europe. And they can agree whatever they want. President Zelensky and armed forces will not agree with it and keep fighting. And I don't understand the talks about the peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. I think it's quite nonsense, because Ukraine is able to defend its borders. Its current.
While you're speaking, by the way, I'm interrupting you for a second. I'm interrupting you because we just saw Mette Frederiksen, the Danish Prime Minister, exit the French presidential palace. She was representing the Nordic and Baltic states at this meeting. Do you regret the fact that the meeting wasn't extended to your country?
Well, I'm sure that she was representing Nordic Baltic properly. I think the smaller format gives you a better possibility to come to good decisions. But again, no deal without Europe over Europe. And I'm sure that will happen. I think what we need for Ukraine in the future is the NATO membership. Nobody can tell the independent country whether he can join any of the alliances. It's up to the NATO member states to decide about it. And that is the only guarantee which can be given. But I've already, in May 22, together with General Breedlove and General Sheriff and other retired generals, called for control of airspace over Ukraine, and I'm still convinced that that is something which NATO countries either in the framework of NATO or a coalition of willing, can do to save many lives which Russia is attacking, civilians, children, mothers, etc. I think these are things which Europe's big countries and Europe together and NATO countries together can provide to Ukraine. But that is all possible only if there is a kind of a fair and just peace. And agreements like Minsk show that this is something just to postpone the next conflict or next war, next attack from Russia, giving Russia time to regroup, and that we should not do. And I think we should very quickly start to use Russian proven assets to support Ukraine. We should solve the money problem ourselves and be with Ukraine, because it's not what's happening in Ukraine is not about Ukraine. It's about the whole Europe and our values. And Estonia, if you ask whether we are afraid, no, we are not afraid. We are prepared. We are spending 4% of the GDP on defense. Of course, Estonian pensioners, old people, and children would like to have a better social guarantees. But the Estonian people have decided to pay more for defense because they understand what it is all about. And I hope that that countries who have not a direct border with Russia will understand that there's something like burden sharing is very important, and that NATO countries together will decide 3% or more allocated for defense very quickly and very soon. Because otherwise we will not be able to deal with the threat situation.
So the threat situations
with or without the United States. But I'm still convinced we will do it with the United States.
With or without the United States, but you're convinced with. Clearly, is an agreement not to speak to reporters. We saw the president of the European Council, the European Commission make their exit there from the presidential palace live. And they're not usually camera shy. Jean-Paul Paloméros, you just heard Rio Terras talk about controlling Ukraine's airspace as a former head of the French Air Force. Can that be done without the United States?
That we could certainly achieve something with the US, the UK Royal Air Force, the French, and the German together, I would say, and some others as well. But that will make us belligerent. We must face the truth, and our countries have decided not to be involved as directly in the war, and I cannot see that changing, and certainly not on the short term. This is one point. The other point I would like to stress this is that already well before the discussions between Russia and the USA, Mr. Putin has won part of the battle because Mr. Trump has really stated very firmly that NATO was not an option for the future of Ukraine. And I feel this is I'm very sorry about that. Obviously, the mandate of a US president is 4 years, but 4 years will be a long time for Ukraine. So Mr. Putin should be happy with that. I hope that Mr. Trump will not go further in giving more freedom of maneuver for Putin in Ukraine.
Now, I asked Rio Terras whether Estonia was prepared in case of a Russian attack. What about France? Because there are more than 1,000 French troops in Romania. There are some 200 French troops right now in Estonia. If there was a confrontation, is France prepared for a direct confrontation? It seems unimaginable. It's never happened during the entirety of the Cold War, but is France prepared?
Well, I would say if you look to the French military forces, I would...
No, they're not prepared.
Yes, we know that as far as the number is concerned, obviously, like any European countries, we have a problem against the high density, high intensity warfare and on the long term, but nevertheless, we have high-end capacity, high-end capability. Nevertheless, the question is more on the support of the people And this is why I think we need a very clear and strong voice out of the politician in France to make sure that the French people understand what is at stake, that freedom comes with a price, and that it is time really to take that very seriously, because in a few months, in a few years, it could be too late if we let that down. So yes, the answer is yes, but
sitting here in Paris, Samantha Benjamin, General Paladin saying public opinion right now doesn't see this as a direct security threat for the most part.
No, I think very few public opinions.
Are we overstating it?
Are we overstating the threat? Or
Yeah, here I am asking about whether or not Estonia and France are ready in case of a direct conflict.
Well, let's put it this way.
That's a far-fetched question.
I don't think it's a far-fetched question at all. I think that the threat is real, and I'm basing that thought on the fact a lot of the European intelligence agencies think that that threat is real. So how could this threat play out? One idea that has actually been put forward by a colleague of mine at Chatham House called Keir Giles is that in order to deter France or another NATO member state from coming to the rescue of a country like Estonia, one could imagine a two-pronged attack. An attack on Estonia, for instance, and I apologize that we're using Estonia as the example, but it does seem to be one of the most likely candidates for an attack. And at the same time, a missile attack on a European city to put absolute fear into the minds of the electorate in Germany, in France, and somewhere else, to then dissuade public opinion from encouraging the idea of coming to the defense of a country like Estonia, which seems far away. What would happen then is that NATO would then cease to exist. We're talking about whether NATO is dead. NATO is not dead today. But if a NATO member is attacked, and for whatever reason, other members do not agree to invoke Article 5, which is the idea that an attack on one is an attack on all, or do not give an adequate response in an Article 5 situation, then we have the death of NATO. So would public opinion respond? It's up to the politicians to explain that France's defense, Germany's defense is part of NATO at the moment, and that without NATO, it will be a lot more expensive to keep that defense. People often think about their bottom lines, and this is what it will be about at the end of the day.
And NATO's not dead, you say, but it is in trouble. And for instance, just remind people, while Russia bombed a cover built to contain radiation at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant last week, J.D. Vance saw danger elsewhere, the U.S. Vice President at the Munich Security Conference.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
Nick Holdsworth, J.D. Vance in that speech then goes on to chastise his hosts for refusing to invite the far-right AfD to the conference, the far-right AfD, which is pro-Putin views often, and which is polling second in next Sunday's general election.
It is indeed. It slightly has upped its poll numbers from about 20.3% to about 21%. If it does get those number of votes, it's going to double its seats in the Reichstag, in the Bundestag, the German parliament, and it's going to have an influence, even though the remaining parties say that they will maintain the firewall, the so-called.
The reaction were you on, Nick, to J.D. Vance on stage, basically endorsing electoral alliances with the far right?
People are horrified. I mean, there were 200,000 people out on the streets of Berlin just yesterday protesting against the AfD. It's horrified the Chancellor, Olaf Scholz. He sharply rebuked Vance for interfering in domestic German politics. It's delighted the Russians. The Russian Speaker of the Russian Duma, the Parliament, Vyacheslav Volodin, said that J.D. Vance had called out Europe correctly and had identified failures in European democracy, as if Volodin is in a position to lecture Europe on democracy. The Russians are delighted. A Russian TV commentator said that France have given the Europeans a good caning.
Good caning is we're watching images of Giorgia Meloni exiting the Élysée Palace with Emmanuel Macron, the Italy's leader, who stood by her president, Nick Holdsworth, in a row over President Mattarella calling what's going on in Moscow Nazism. At this time, and right now, where you are standing, they're talking about this on the campaign trail. I know there's a second night of lead candidates debate later. That's why Olaf Scholz left the meeting early here in Paris. One of those issues is, and this is what Rio Terrace has been telling us about in this discussion, spending more and carving out an exception for defense. How popular, though, is that in Germany?
It's not very popular at all. The Germans have suffered a couple of years of recession. Most Germans are concerned about the bottom line, the cost of a basket of shopping in the local supermarket, whether pensions are going to increase in line with inflation, that sort of thing. But we do have the front runner in the elections for the next Chancellor, Friedrich Merz of the CDU, saying that he will spend more on defence. Scholz saying, yes, we'll spend more on defence, but not quite as assertive as Friedrich Merz. Although we should remember that Friedrich Merz was the politician who accepted the support of the AfD in an anti-immigration vote in Parliament just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you were mentioning it earlier, says Samantha de Bender, and the fact that for the time being, Europeans are saying this won't happen without us. But could it?
Yep.
I think we've entered a world where anything is possible. I mean, we've been the idea 3 years ago, and we're approaching 3 years of the beginning of the war, beginning of the second phase of the war in Ukraine. There were debates, whether we would send more anti-tank missile launchers. Now we're actually talking about putting boots on the ground. I think that we have come to a stage where anything is possible. Who would have imagined even a year ago, in spite of the warnings the United States were giving us about disengagement from Europe, such hostile rhetoric coming from both J.D. Vance and Pete Hegseth. So I think we have come into a world where anything's possible. What else is Europe going to do? Is Europe going to abandon Ukraine? I honestly don't see that happening yet. And if it does, it will make the world a lot more dangerous for all of us in Paris, in London, in Berlin, and potentially even in Washington.
Ukraine's president in the United Arab Emirates this Monday before Turkey, and he'll be in Saudi Arabia Wednesday. That's after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio speaks with his Russian counterparts. Here was Zelensky speaking by video link to journalists back home earlier.
Ukraine is not participating in the upcoming negotiations. Ukraine knew nothing about it. Ukraine regards any negotiations on Ukraine without Ukraine as negotiations with no result, and we cannot acknowledge any arrangements about us that were made without us.
Rio Terrace, what do you do now in this case? What do European leaders do? There you have Volodymyr Zelensky saying he's clearly been broadsided by the Trump administration.
Well, what we should do, we should stay with Ukraine and help Ukraine. We should remember that US has 350 million citizens, Russia 140, and Europe is 450 European Union plus the others. So we are second or third biggest economical power, and we're talking about we are not able to support. Of course we are. Today the support to Ukraine costs every European Union citizens 1.2 cups of coffee a month. So that means that we are able, if we would like to, we want to support Ukraine, to support Ukraine. The other thing which I would like to say is I don't understand the negative thinking on Estonia is the most possible place where NATO is attacked. I don't see Russia able to attack NATO today whatsoever. It will be end of Putin and end of Russia if there will be any attempts. And believe me or not, but Estonians will fight as long as it is needed. We have 1939, 1940, we did not do it, and we lost 10% of the population, and Russia killed and harassed us 50 years. So we will fight, and I'm sure our allies will fight with us. The British and French soldiers and American soldiers in Estonian soil today, they will fight, and NATO will function. So I have no doubt about that. The other thing is how we can support Ukraine. And as I said, we have to stand together, all European countries together behind Ukraine, and increase significantly military and humanitarian support and economical support to Ukraine. And most importantly, we should have planned what we do after. It's not about how we end the war, it's about what happens after the war is ended. And there, the reconstruction of Ukraine is a very important thing. And we should always think about what happens if Russia conquers, takes over Ukraine. Then we have 40 million very angry Ukrainians against us, with all the Ukrainian resources, huge resources, which Ukraine has, and flows of refugees, which are not comparable to those which we have today. So very easy for me to understand. We need to do more. We need to pay more. All citizens of Europe should pay more.
Should pay more. We're running short on time. I'll read what the Prime Minister of Poland has just said. We realize that transatlantic relations are in a new stage. We'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Samantha. The vendor, and I want to thank Rio Terras. I want to thank as well.
I think that was a good. I think that was a good analysis on the current state of NATO, and they're just going to continue thinking that they're going to be able to continue the war effort by supporting Ukraine and trying to nullify what Trump is trying to do to de-escalate the issue. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the multivitamin that I have. This is an easy to digest multivitamin that I have in stock right now. You should be taking a multivitamin every day. Go to my store and take a look at the actual profile of this multivitamin. But it's an easy to digest multivitamin. And the key for multivitamins is just that they are cofactors for enzymatic activity. So vitamins and minerals, they will attach to certain areas of enzymes and change the conformation of the enzyme and have them perform better. So if you're not getting every day the vitamins and minerals that you need, then you're going to have subpar enzymatic activity in your cells. So your cells aren't going to perform as well. So it's really important to take this multivitamin. It's easy to digest. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and use discount 5 on any order. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the multivitamin. And lastly, C60. I've been talking about C60, until the cows come home. Second pillar of a 4-pillar protocol, what I call the core. All right. The first pillar is max 35, max 14, boost up your immune system. The second pillar, C60, soak up free radicals. Third pillar, bring down inflammation by taking turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans. And the fourth pillar is taking Boomer Boost to boost up your metabolism and increase your energy levels. Now, C60 is a very potent antioxidant. It is hundreds of times, if not 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. Now, the reason why is that the C60 molecule looks like a soccer ball. It's called a fullerene or a buckyball. And the electrons move around with this structure. So it can recharge as it's neutralizing the free radicals and bring down the free radical load in your cell radically. Vitamin C is one molecule, and once it absorbs one free radical, it's done. It doesn't recharge. So you can, with one molecule of vitamin C, it only neutralizes one free radical. So this is the reason why you couldn't take enough C6, you couldn't take enough vitamin C at all. You couldn't take enough vitamin C in your life to be able to do the same, have the same effects as C60, because C60 is so potent. So take a teaspoon a day, and it's going to soak up those free radicals, bring down the stress in the cell, and the cell is going to perform better. The mitochondria in the cell is going to be healthier, and your ATP is going to go up. When you have more energy for the cell, cellular energy called ATP, then that means your cells are going to perform better, and then your tissues are going to perform better. And if your tissues are performing better, then your organ systems are going to perform better. That means your glands are going to perform better. That means your endocrine system is going to be better. That means your neurological function is going to be better. That means that your organ systems will perform better based on whatever they're focused on. Your liver will perform better, so it'll detoxify better. Your immune system will be better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the C60. Also, when you soak up those free radicals in your serum, in your blood, all right, by soaking up those free radicals, you're reducing LDL oxidation. That means you're reducing plaque buildup. So C60 helps with cardiovascular disease. It helps to prevent plaque formation by bringing down the oxidative load and reducing LDL oxidation. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take a teaspoon a day. You can get it in MCT coconut oil. You can get it in avocado oil and also extra virgin olive oil. You can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. In addition, when you stack this with other things like the core that I just talked about, you're going to really supercharge your health. Now, it's in a lipid, it's in an oil because C60, for the absorption that you need to absorb it with an oil because it's oil soluble, all right, lipid soluble. Now, it's better to take it on an empty stomach for best absorption. And if you work out, take it before your workout. So it's going to soak up the free radicals during your workout, and you're going to recover quicker because you're going to be soaking up those free radicals through the workout, and you're boosting up your ATP levels. So your recovery time on your workout is going to be improved. This stuff is really good. You're going to see lots of benefits over time. Do an experiment for yourself if you haven't used C60. Try it for 1 year and watch on how you're not aging as fast and how your systems are performing better, how your immune system is getting better. And many people have reported that they have better eyesight. I used to wear glasses, all right, for a long time. And guess what? When I started taking C60, within 3 months, I didn't have to use my glasses. Now I'm farsighted and with a slight stigmatism. But I don't have to wear glasses anymore. And that was after 3 months of taking C60. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. Oh, by the way, I had to wear glasses once I turned about 19, 20 years old. So, also people have reported improvements with macular degeneration. So it's really important to focus on what I'm saying and stack the supplements the way I tell you, and you're going to get serious benefits for your health. But it's a holistic approach. It's proper supplementation, proper diet, proper exercise, proper sleep. You got to do resistance training. You got to do cardiovascular. You got to do stretching. You have to do balancing. You got to activate that cerebellum. You got to have some mindfulness or spirituality. You got to learn new things. Get that neuroplasticity going. And guess what? You're slowing down the aging process. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. Use discount 5 on any order, and you get $5 off. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. Thank you for listening. That's the end of the transmission. We went over a lot. This has been over a 3-hour transmission today. Again, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. take a look at the supplements, help support my work, and please get the supplements, stack it the way I told you to improve your health. It's a win-win situation. You're helping my work so I can reach more people to help with their health and wellness, and you're helping yourself by improving your health and wellness. So it's a win-win situation.